In the midst of the darkness, God has sent us His light. There's no need to be anxious. He will lead in our fight. If you've been called by the Savior, you will surely win.
Welcome everybody to the Manning to why I did that yesterday. All right, let's start over again. Welcome everybody to the Trust in the Lord Hour. I am your host, James David, righteous, trusting in the Lord, stomp down, boom, shakalaka, righteous Manning. How's everybody doing today? We've got the dateline of this message, and we not always given to dateline everything because messages kind of run various seasons. But it's the 21st of May in the year 2020, of the year of the coronavirus. And of course, yesterday, the 20th of May, it was reported that the largest number of cases of people that have been infected with the coronavirus was over 106,000, reported by the World Health Organization on yesterday. Today, and we are at 93,000 plus people that have died in the US of A. As over the last 3 months. So you're averaging around 31,000 people or 1,000 people a day dying in America. And that number is going to remain constant. And I'll tell you more about that in the Manning Report. But right now I want to deal with what I want to say to that the economic devastation is coming. There is no getting around it. All the king's horses and all the king's men cannot put the economy back together again. You can repeat that after you if you like, and you can tell them when you first heard it. Wall Street, the U.S. Treasury, and the economic engines of the American economy and the global economy, all the king's horses and all the king's men cannot put the economy back together again quickly. It's going to take 3 to 10 years before we see the kind of economy that we were comfortable with, let's say going back a year or 2 years ago. Now, I want to say as well to you, and I want you to pull up close because I want you to listen to this. First of all, we may have to interrupt this teaching because our studio is not soundproof here in our church building, and there's some construction work going on outside of our property on the sidewalk across the street, and they're using a jackhammer. So in the event that we have to interrupt this, you'll understand that. But now here, many years ago, in God's extreme plan of things, there was a young man named Joseph who was given a coat of many colors, and he found himself in prison in Egypt. A woman had lied on him, and the woman's husband was not a prudent man and allowed Joseph to go off to prison, but it was all God's plan. And God purposed to put a famine upon Egypt in order to be able to bring the Jews that he had birthed through Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob and his younger boy Joseph into Egypt. It was God's plan. The whole 7-year famine that everybody is so familiar with in the Bible was really a plan of God to get all the people down into Egypt and to give the power that was necessary to orchestrate it. Why God did it that way, you can ask anybody other than me. But Joseph was able to interpret that the famine was coming, that the economic devastation of the great nation of Egypt was coming, and he put together a plan that was a superb, absolutely stomped down economic plan to sustain not only Egypt, but the entire world. Joseph's plan, that 7-year plan that Joseph put together, was a plan that sustained Egypt throughout the famine that God sent and the entire world. Having said that, I want to say to you again, all the king's horses and all the king's men are not going to be able to put the economy back together again. The American economy or the global economy. They're not going to be able to put it back together again. Today, there's a report that some 38.6 million Americans have filed for unemployment, and we're just getting started on the process of unemployment and the devastation of the economics of America. So I have a suggestion from Almighty God that I'd like to present to you, and that is this. We want to get started with the smallest of economic plans of a $100 million investment plan called the Joseph Nath Pioneer Investment Plan. Now, the details of which I will not reveal publicly. I'll only do it in closed executive sessions because I don't want all the people that would want to destroy our well-being or to take the plan and run with it themselves. What I want to do today in talking about this $100 million economic plan, let me explain something to you. The center of it, of course, will be Harlem properties such as houses and businesses within the Harlem community that Almighty God has changed the name of it to ATLAH. Of course, it can be employed in Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and other places as well. But I think we first need to start at Harlem. And $100 million is a pittance compared to where we're going to go. That's only 1/10 of $1 billion. So it's a pittance, but we want to get started with if you will, the actual smallest amount, and then we'll move on into the billions of dollars in terms of the Joseph Zaphnath plan. Now here, this plan that I'm going to give to you is likened to the plan that Joseph was able to give to Pharaoh, that in 7 years, Joseph's plan was able to sustain Egypt and the world. And the plan that I'm going to give to you will sustain the people of God throughout the process. And we may be in this tribulation for the next 7 years. I tend to think that it's going to last that long before the Lord Jesus Christ returns. Now, don't hold me to that. Don't say, well, Pastor says it's going to be 7 years before Jesus returns and 7 years before the famine, before the tribulation is over with. Don't hold me to that. And Jesus is not going to tell me either, because I would blab it like most other people would blab it. But he has his own timing. But I have a sense in my Noah that it's going to be another 7 years. I don't know. It could be another 7 months and it's all over with. Jesus is going to be cracking the sky. We're all going to be, carried away through that immense process. Let me say to you this, and I want you to hear me clearly. I want you to listen to me. Those of you that have been following me and you're listening and you're wondering and on, but you haven't been able to extricate yourself, though you disagree with a lot of the things I say, you have not been able to extricate yourself from my teachings, because it's just something there. There's just something there in what I'm saying that rings so powerfully resonant and true. Let me say this to you. All the king's horses and all the king's men will not be able to put the economy or the world back together again. And that's why this plan that I'm going to present to you is so critical and so important. Let me say one further thing to you, that the government, now listen to me very carefully, those of you who really you've never supported, you don't want to support, you're looking for some way to leave, to stop listening, and all the forces from Silicon Valley and every place else that's trying to stop this word from going forward. But for whatever reason, they've not been able to do that as of yet. Let me say this to you, that the government is no longer in control. The government, Wall Street, the economic engines of America and the globe are no longer in control. I think Dr. Fauci said that. Fauci says it best. This virus controls when it ends and what will happen. You see, the government can't control the virus. No tribulation. Trump has tried with hydroxychloroquine, with Clorox, with Lysol, with lies. But he cannot control. Here, let me explain to you. We'll come up close. This kingdom, the capitals of the world, Moscow, Paris, Sao Paulo, Brisbane, Sydney, Berlin, New York, Washington, D.C., the Wall Street, the Nikau, all of this belongs to Satan. The Southern Baptist Church, all the Potter's House, the Brooklyn Tabernacle, all of that, that's the devil's kingdom. All of that's the devil's kingdom. This kingdom does not, John's Gospel chapter 18, verse 36, this kingdom does not belong to Jesus. It doesn't. And so as a result of the kingdom not belonging to Jesus, as a result of that, they call the shots. But what God does when he brings in items such as earthquakes, the government can't control earthquakes. The government can't control wars or famines or pestilences. So Almighty God uses those items to bring his power. This pandemic is the power of God above the legislative, congressional powers of all the governments of the world, whether it be communists or dictators or whether it be democracies. The pandemic cannot be controlled by a communist resolution or a democratic vote. The government is no longer in control. God is. And it's God, his name is Jesus, who has set this pandemic. The churches are controlled by the devil. You name it, you name them, they're satanically inspired. But this pandemic, this coronavirus, this pestilence, and more to come. So all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put the government or the economy back together again. Now, let me zero in on the fact that this $100 million investment is just a beginning process. Let's look at what's happening, what's going to happen in the economic demise here in the community of Harlem. You're going to see houses for sale for $10. Maybe a bit more, maybe 10,000 or 100,000. You're going to see $1 million properties for sale for $10,000. The entire structure of the business model in Harlem, and I've observed it, and I'm not an economist, but I'm pretty good. The business model in Harlem is this, and that's one of the, without this pandemic, it would have eventually collapsed anyway. The business model in Harlem was to rehabilitate some of the finest built houses by the Dutch, by the Germans, and by many others that built houses going back 150 years ago here in the Harlem community. Some of the best houses and some of the best architecture and community planning that you've ever seen in terms of community structure. Those houses went into disrepair going back 50 years ago. They have been rehabilitated now. And so because of its close proximity to New York City, downtown, Broadway, Wall Street, the shopping district, 3 airports, Newark Airport, the LaGuardia and Kennedy Airport, and accessible, it's a gateway to the world, New York City is. So having housing in Harlem was of extraordinary and profitable. And so it was, and so it is. And then the other component of the economy of the community was to build restaurants, because people love to dine, they love to eat, they love to socialize. They love to go out and drink champagne and Chardonnay and Caesar salads and eat fancy meals. And so literally hundreds, if not multiple hundreds of restaurants and restaurateurs invested literally millions, if not billions of dollars in establishing restaurants of all kinds of fancy palates, appeals. And so that's what you have as the basis of the economy. You don't have stock markets, you don't have investment houses, you don't have Gucci or Armani, you don't have Neiman Marcus, you don't have Lord & Taylor, you don't even have a Macy's in Harlem, because the retail market is not something that will be sustained by the people in the community. So the sustaining of this community is built on a model of leisure, dining, and extraordinarily housing, and that's it. But the problem with that is that it did not remove completely the massive number of indigenous people, generally black men and women, who, though they got reshuffled, the deck got reshuffled, they got pushed out of their houses, many into shelters, others in sustained public housing called city projects, and others, but they still remain in the community in mass numbers. They remain indigenous to the community, many living on the streets. And so the population of poor people relative to the population of the wealthy, leisure-seeking restaurant diners and condo and brownstone home owners are in combat with one another. And because of this, the way the economy is structured and the values have now been exasperated, ultimately, the indigenous people, just by their very presence. I mean, this is not like, the village or the East Village or the east side of Manhattan or the west side of Manhattan or Westchester County. Harlem is still as black and in many ways as vile as one once always thought it was. And there are those that move here trying to exist, thought that their very presence would change the dynamics of the community. It has not. The recent investment in major corporations such as the Marriott Hotel, and I'm going to say this to you, and I'll take whatever chastisement from the Lord that He will inflict upon me for saying this, but I'm a blabbermouth. There was a deal put together not long ago to build a Marriott hotel reaching some 30 to 50 stories high above New York, above 125th Street, just a bit west of that tall building that you see right there, and skyscraping above the Apollo Theater. Now listen to me the Marriott Hotel on 125th Street, right? Right now, the hospitality business is in its worst shape, and it's going to take years before it returns. Hotels, Las Vegas is trying to reopen now with social distancing as a way that they're going to gamble. Hotels around the planet are not being visited. People aren't flying, people aren't traveling, and even when they pick up the traveling again, these massive hotels will not be able to be fully occupied, and they will not be able to carry the weight of what it costs to run those institutions globally. The hotel business is in deep, deep trouble. And a new hotel that has not been completed yet, the Marriott Hotel on 125th Street. Now, Sabbath, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Listen to me very carefully, Sabbath. And Mariah Collins, listen to me very carefully, Mariah. Listen to me very, very carefully, Mariah Collins. That hotel that has not yet been completed with still several tens of millions of dollars of construction left to be done. When it is completed in the year 2021, there'll be nobody to occupy it because of social distancing and because of the way the hospitality industry has now flipped itself, and people aren't going to be able to. Thank you, Mr. Engineer. Thank you very much to give people a sight of this hotel on 125th Street. And because people are not going to be using the St. Regis, the Four Seasons, the Marriotts, the Sheratons, the Hiltons, at the rate they have done, it'll take 3 to 7 years before they return to hotel population where they're given the opportunity to do it. This bad boy will be on the block to be sold for absolutely pennies, because it'll be a white elephant sitting in the middle of Harlem that nobody wants to come to Harlem. And then the other thing that has to happen, Sabbath, is that the streets of Harlem are filled with disease. Every time you pass by a homeless person or a person on the streets of Harlem, and there are literally thousands of people out on the street, men and women every day, that are African American, if you will. I call them Hamites. Many of them are homeless. Many of them have poor jobs. Many of them are underemployed, but they're on the street. And every time a Japheth person passed by one of them that they just have sneezed or coughed, even though they are wealthy lawyers or bankers or doctors, when they walk, the air in Harlem has been contaminated by the masses of black people on the street breathing and coughing and sneezing and talking. Everywhere you look, from 155th Street down to 110th Street and on 125th Street in particular, and even the people that work in the small stores, these people are fumigating the air of Harlem with the coronavirus. They're constantly coughing, constantly sneezing. Many of them got tuberculosis. Many of them have asthma, and they're blowing that coronavirus. So the rich, wealthy Japheth or Jewish man that walks through going to his $1 million condo or his $2 million, $5 million brownstone will be breathing the air that was just exhaled by a homeless man who hasn't changed his underwear in 3 months, don't own a roll of toilet paper. But God is in control, and the government and the white man's money is not in control no more. Good God Almighty! And hallelujah, and boom shakalaka goes right there. Good God Almighty goes right there. He's not in control. In order for him to get home, in order for the rich entrepreneur and for the restaurants, the sidewalk cafes, every time a black man walks by, a homeless man or an unemployed black man, a black woman, or black children living in the projects or living in substandard housing and wearing old clothing, every time they walk by the sidewalk cafes like Harlem Tavern and the Social Club and the Red Rooster and others, every time they walk by those open air restaurants, they breathe death from the coronavirus. They breathe death. They breathe death on those sidewalk cafes. They sneeze and cough and every other kind of exhaustion and passing of gas in the air that has to be rebreathed by the patrons that are wealthy, that are rich, that live in the exclusive house. You're going to die. So the government is not in control anymore. God is. Ha! Yes. And so over the next few months, you're going to see the continual deaths. You're going to see the demise of the global economy as well. There is no way you're going to be able to overcome the power of God using this coronavirus for his end and for his mean. This is where I step in. I'm the Lord's servant. And so understanding that 125th Street will be an aerosol death trap, that Harlem itself will be an aerosol death trap, that anybody breathing the air of Harlem will be breathing death. Anyone, even with your mask on, anyone breathing air in Harlem will be breathing death. And the warmer it gets, the homeless people are not going to stay in them homeless shelters. Many of them get put out. And many people that are in prison are going to be released. Many people who should be in hospitals won't find hospitals receptive of them. Many children that would normally be in school will be on the streets. And so everyone breathing air in Harlem will be breathing death. Death will come by the intake in the fancy restaurants. And many of the workers that clean the bathrooms in the Harlem Tavern or the Social Club or in Jacob's Restaurant or in the Red Rooster or in other, many of them that work, that clean the floors, that mop the floors, that wipe down the chairs, that aerosol Burger King, many of them are sick with the coronavirus because they're forced to come to work. Death is in the air. Death is in the air. Death is in the air over Harlem, more so than it is over Midtown Manhattan or Wall Street, because you don't have as many sick people. So you see, every person. And then I want to send the word out to everyone else downtown on Wall Street that people who live in Harlem, like Don Lemon, who has a condo on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, want to send a shout out to people like Anderson Cooper and others at CNN, that when Don Lemon comes in, though you may test him and check his temperature, he's bringing that dead air, that deadly coronavirus air from Harlem down to the fancy studios of CNN. And he may be asymptomatic, but the rest of y'all gonna catch it. And every time a wealthy lawyer or banker or business person leaves his plush and luxurious brownstone in Harlem and takes the train or Uber down to Wall Street and walks into Goldman Sachs or Chase Bank or one of the others, he brings death down to Wall Street. You look out on the street, and I've shown you the pictures of the men in the black jackets, and I've shown you, I'll put more up, and the men who are just out on the corner of streets loitering from East River to the Hudson River. Disease is everywhere in Harlem. It's everywhere. The air in Harlem is contaminated with the coronavirus, and the government can't control it. So what are you going to do? You're going to round up all the homeless people and put them on trains and send them to Auschwitz or to Dachau? What are you going to do? Or you're going to sell your property and move out to Long Island where the air is clean. Is that what you're going to do? But this is what you see every day amidst the $1 million condos and the multi-million dollar brownstones. The streets are littered with poor homeless black men and women sleeping on the street, breathing on the street, urinating on the street, defecating on the street. You know what you ought to do? You know what you ought to do? You ought to come to Harlem and watch a young man coming down the street, right? And you see him walking real fast. Well, not just a young man, maybe a middle-aged man. You can tell he's homeless. You can look at him, or he lives in some of the most decrepit conditions when he's unemployed. He doesn't have on work clothes of any sort. He's walking down the street, right? And you pass him by. Watch him. He'll go to the side street, go down the street where there's a few row of cars, get behind the third car, and urinate 2 or 3 gallons of pee on the street. Zip his pants up and walk back uptown, walk back up the street. No public bathrooms. And he doesn't have a house where he can go, and his bathroom is in a shelter, so he urinates on the street. That's right. That's what's happening in Harlem. So as a result of that, there's going to be a massive economic collapse. And don't blame me. Remember that the government and Wall Street is not in control of this coronavirus. Remember that. I am. Well, I'm the Lord's servant. I'm not in control of the virus. Let me clear that up. But I'm the Lord's servant. And so it's going to be a lot of fun Sabbath. Hey, Mariah, it's going to be a lot of fun watching these people run from Harlem when they recognize the deaths. And don't go over to Spanish Harlem as well. It's worse. That's right. Or the South Bronx. Or the people that come down from the South Bronx. Or the same in Fort Greene. Now, everything I've said about Harlem cannot necessarily be completely duplicated in Fort Greene, which is in Brooklyn. But at the rate of 70% of what is happening with the dead air, the air that is diseased air of the streets of Harlem. So you walk by with your poodle and your short pants, right? And you breathe the air that was just breathed by a homeless man who's got not only coronavirus, but he's got tuberculosis, suffering with cancer. He's got prostate problems. He's got all kinds of asthmatic problems. The boy is in trouble. And his air, this air I breathe, the old Jays used to say, don't belong to me. I'll tell virtuous evangelist, virtuous Myers, pull that song up by the old Jays. This air I breathe don't belong to me. I suck it in, I blow it out, but it don't belong to me. But ain't that something? The wealthy, the rich, the super rich, the privileged, the educated, the powerful, gonna have to breathe the air of the sick and the dying. So you say, well, we'll put on a mask. Really? So you go home, you put on a mask, And you walk the streets with a mask on, and the air gets on the mask, and you touch it, and then you touch your face. Or you open the windows, or you turn on your air conditioning, and the compressor or the air conditioner sucks the air in powerfully from the streets, and you breathe it in a more condensed fashion. God is sick of y'all. He's sick of you people. He's sick. You Japheth European people have been acting in predatory ways for years. For years. And now the chickens have come home to roost. You're going to die. And you're going to leave Harlem. So I wanted to say that to let people know that once the community is vacated, how do we then rehabilitate the community? How do the people who are going to kill people, how do the man that's 54 years old to 75 years old that's on the street, his shoes reek with odors, his jacket has never been to a cleaner's, his underwear are 3 months of feces and urine drippings. And all of that air is being breathed by the super rich that go to Wall Street, or the Don Lemons, or the Anderson Coopers that visit Harlem, or those that sit in Harlem Tavern and drink their Chardonnay and eat their Caesar salad. And the waffling air of the brother that walks by then falls upon the Caesar salad and the croutons. How has God remedied this? The thing of it is, you say, well, Pastor Man, doesn't that mean that you're going to inhale this? I've been inhaling it for years. I've got antibodies that I'm immune. That's right. I and others, we have God's immunity. That's right. I've been living this. I'm one of the kind. I'm one of the spreaders of. I have godly immunity. I've lived among the people. I wake up in Harlem every morning. I've been doing that for the last 40 years. That's right. And this is God's plan. So you're no longer in control. You're no longer in control of your houses. You would best, now listen to me very carefully, spread this word out to the Japheth people that own these properties up here in Harlem. And anybody else, you know? I've seen people do pickpocketing. I'm not a pickpocket, but I used to hang out with people who did pickpocketing. I don't do that. But you know, the Lord has shown me how, let's say, for instance, there's a person like a politician or a business owner on Wall Street, right? And he walks out of that prestige of the Goldman Sachs or maybe one of the investment houses on Park Avenue, right? And God sends a disease, asthmatic, tuberculosis, coronavirus diseased man with 3 months of underwear with feces and urine droppings that he hasn't changed in 3 months. And God sends him down as the man walks out of his prestigious building with his valise, getting ready to catch his Uber, and the man who is diseased bumps into him. So, oh, I'm sorry for bumping into you, and he thinks nothing of it. But the diseased man blows that coronavirus into his nostrils just before he gets in his Uber. And now he's got it. He got it on Park Avenue and 47th Street. That's where he caught it. And then the man gets back on the train, the number 6 train, comes back uptown, gets off 125th Street and loiters on Lexington Avenue or Park Avenue. By the way, I swear, if you ever go to 125th Street and Lexington Avenue, Park Avenue, I do declare before Almighty God, you need to go over there with a gas mask. There are so many sick, diseased, and dying people on 125th Street. In a few moments, probably not now, but the next time you and I get together, I'm going to talk to you about the fact that Dr. King's idea of Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolence was a failure. But I didn't get there yet. I'm going to get there, that nonviolence don't work. And I'm going to tell you why. Moses didn't think that nonviolence worked. He killed the oppressor of his Jewish brother, and then he killed some 100,000 people in Egypt in one night. Moses didn't think that nonviolence worked. Moses was a killer. Moses killed. But having said that, I want to quote Chris Rock that I don't normally quote. Chris Rock said, every street in America that's named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is the most dangerous street in America. And it is right here in Harlem. They call 125th Street Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is the most dangerous street in all of New York City. So you got to walk by this. So next time you show this to all your Japheth friends. Hey, you LGBTQ people, right? All you LGBTQ people, show this to your Japheth friends. Tell them, you know, the preacher up there that we hate so much that we call a hate preacher. He's not a hate preacher. He preaches the truth and we hate to hear it. But guess what he just told us? He told us we are breathing death in our homes when we walk by these people on the street. We can't make them get off the street. They just sneezed and we didn't know it. And the droplets of sneeze and snot and coronavirus is in the air when we're walking by them. As we walk by in our fancy suits and our fancy shoes and our fancy watches and our fancy incomes, we are breathing, we are living at the same level as the homeless man who doesn't have a penny to his name. We're no better than them. We're breathing his air. Run! Sell your houses now, Sabbath. Tell them that. They need to sell out now while you can still get a good price. Because once this word gets out, the economics of this community is going to drop like a lead stone. That's right. And we'll take over the Marriott Hotel, and then I'll be about the business of cleaning up these young men. That's a major issue that's a part of the process of ATLAH to clean up this community. That's right. That's the Marriott Hotel. It's yet unfinished, as you can see. This picture was probably taken. It's dated. They probably have advanced beyond that. But the Marriott hotels around the world, Caesar's Palace, the Four Seasons, the St. Regis here in New York, nobody's traveling. This is going to be one of the worst travel seasons, and a lot of income in New York from the hotels that come into New York will not be coming in. There's a travel ban on parts of Europe, travel ban on China, and they're the ones with the big bucks. The Chinese are the people with the big bucks. They're the ones whose economy is jumping off the roof, growing at 4% under Xi Jinping. They're the ones with all the money. They're the modern society. Their economy is outdistancing out, but Trump has said they can't come in. So who's going to occupy the hotels? Who's going to pay those extraordinary rents? Who's going to come to Harlem? Who's going to occupy the bed and breakfasts? Who's going to come to the theaters? The government is no longer in control. God is in control. And I'm his servant. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. So I thought it would be important for me to drop this message on you today, that we might be able to understand it. Now, part two of this, I taught part of this last evening at the Open Rewards prayer meeting. I'll do more teaching of this as the Lord gives an opportunity for me to do it, but I just want to drop that segment on you. And the next segment that I want to be able to deal with is the reconstruction of the black man. Now, the call to be a part of the Joseph Zafnath Payoneer investment fund is a call to all races, to all people. It is a call to everyone who wants a righteous designation as a part of their identification. It's not a race, it's just the black people or Hamites, if you will, but it's a call to all races of people are welcome. I have wondered often myself, not necessarily gotten an answer, but the ministry that we have done over the years has always been interracial. There have always been Japheth people who, for whatever reason, have associated themselves with the ministry that we do, and it's in Harlem. It's a miracle, quite frankly. The number of Japheth people that are attracted, I made a statement on last evening, that a large part of the support that we get, as quietly as it is kept, the support that supports this ministry comes mainly from a large segment of it, from Japheth men who live in the South. You would not think it's so, but it's true. Japheth men that live in the South help support this ministry. Now we get support from Hamites as well, but it's always been that way. It is always since I've reached out beyond Harlem to do ministry. So this is not a call simply because I put emphasis on Harlem and the deaf air that's going to be breathed by the so-called wealthy and powerful. I don't mean to indicate that somehow or another that this is just for Hamite or black or African American people. No, that isn't. Please don't misinterpret me. This is a call for all races of men to come. And there are only three. There's the Shemite, the Hamite, and the Japheth man, and all are welcome. And let me also say, because I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about the Jewish influence upon the house Negro in America. You spread the word, and you spread it everywhere you go, that I'm a Zionist. Now, I'm a Christian, but I'm a Zionist. What do I mean by that? I mean, I believe the Old Testament. I believe Genesis chapter 12, that everybody that prays or blesses Abraham will be blessed. I believe that God gave the land called Israel to Abraham. The Bible is the deed to that land. The Palestinians ain't got, the Palestinians should not be given one grain of sand in Israel. I believe that. I believe that land belongs to the Jews. I know that Jesus was born a Jew. I know that God chose the Jews to bring forth his word, to exemplify his power. I believe that God chose the Jews to show his face. I believe that. Now, I'm a Christian, washed in the blood, full of the Holy Ghost, talking in tongues. Yes, I am. But I'm a Zionist. I'm not a Jew hater. Now, I have to tell you, having said that, there are some people that are born in the Jewish household that are some of the worst scoundrels and bloodsuckers you've ever seen any place on planet Earth. They say they are Jews. As John the Revelator writes in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, they say they're Jews, but they're not. They're liars. They're liars. And these same Jews control the house Negroes today. They control Jay-Z and Beyonce. They're nothing more than a Bonnie and Clyde or Iceberg Slim and his number one squeeze hoe. They ain't no black. They're not for the, and the Jews are promoting. Let me tell you something. You got people, especially in the Hamite tradition, anybody that's a Hamite can sing. You don't believe that? Okay, I'll tell you what you do. Go over there to Germany where they had Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and Chopin and all them great musicians over there, where the Germans listen to that music all the time by some of the greatest musicians they ever graced God's earth. But every German will tell you ain't nothing like sitting in a black church and listen to a black woman sing who ain't got no degree, half the time don't have no teeth, because all Hamite people can sing. All of them. Every last one of them. Everybody black can sing. I don't care who they are. They all can sing. They all got great voices. But the Jews that say they're Jews but are not, but are pimps, only let the house Negro like Jay-Z or Michael Jackson or others become popular. You can have the best sounds on the planet, but if you can't get that Jewish money to promote it, you ain't going nowhere. You can go die penniless and voiceless, singing in a little old storefront church to 3 people, though you can sing better than the people who are making the big bucks, because you're not willing to be a house Negro. You're not willing to sell out. I'm not through with that. I just want to point out going forward. Don't you let the people spread no word on me that I'm a Jew hater. I'm a Zionist. I'm more Jewish than Jews. I'm a Zionist. Talking about the Orthodox, I'm a Zionist. Won't be for a little bit. I'll go over there in Williamsburg, put on one of them black suits and a black hat. That's right, a crown hat, and walk around there with my black suit and my black hat. Don't you try to point me as a Jew hater, but I'm going to tell you something. You ain't seen nothing like these house Negroes, whether it be in entertainment or anything else. Let me tell you something. LeBron James got promoted by the Jews that promoted Barack Obama the other night out there talking about giving college degrees. He is promoted by the Jews. He's a house Negro. That's right. Why don't they let Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Mr. Lou Alcindor himself, why don't they let him do it? No, because he don't go for that. He didn't bite the Jewish He did not become a house Negro the way LeBron James and a whole bunch of other these house Negroes playing basketball. Another thing, all Hamite people can sing and all Hamite people can play basketball, except for me. You put a basketball in the hand of any Hamite person, they can play as good as LeBron James. But they may not be willing to sell out to the blood-sucking Jews. Now, I'm a Zionist, but you know there are some Jews that are born in the household of a Jews, but they're the most vile, pornography promoting, lying and thieves, rapists, molesters you've ever seen on planet Earth. But now there are the Jews that are Orthodox that I stand with, and I stand in this Bible. I want to get that clear. I want to make that clear. So I wanted to be able to say those things to you today. I thank God for the opportunity to say them. So we're going to get ready now. When the economy collapses, we're going to put together our first $100 million investment program that will then, with that, you can only buy probably, 50 of these brownstones. But as the price drops, you can buy 100. And then as the price drops further, you can buy 500. And I will not reveal the plan itself. I'm just telling you why the economy of Harlem is going to fail. And it's a beautiful thing. I will not reveal the absolute plan, but I am calling people. I'm calling you, if you're Japheth, if you're Shemite, if you're Hamite. Now, this is a discriminatory call. We are not accepting people who will come in here and identify themselves as 5%ers, or as Israelites, or as Muslims, or as LGBTQ, or as Baptist, or Pentecostal, or African or Methodist. You come in here with that, we're going to turn you right around. We're going to treat you like you got poison. We ain't bringing you in here with all that NAACP, civil rights, all that nonsense. And I'll do another teaching when I got time to show you how that has failed the Hamite brother miserably. When you come as whatever race you are, and you're coming to be righteous. You're not coming here as a Baptist. You're not coming here as a civil rights. You're not coming as a Democrat or a Republican. You're not coming as you come here to be a part of this process and those that will come. I just want to serve notice on you. Don't come in here talking that talk that, let me tell you something. If you want to get, let's say you just want to get sick. Let's say you're working on a job, right? And you want to take some days off, so you need take off some sick days. And you ain't sick, and your boss requires of you to get a doctor's report that you're sick. Well, all you got to do, if you want to get sick, is to go to a black Pentecostal, a black Baptist, or Methodist, African Methodist church, and sit there through the entire worship on Sunday. You're going to come out there, the Pentecostals, they're the sickest, raggedest, poorest, non-educated, if you will, non-Holy Ghost, non-God-knowing, non-Bible teaching people that you ever won't see anywhere. Go into a Baptist church on Sunday morning, sit there throughout the entire worship service, and then go to the doctor. Here's your report about it. You got a whole lot of stuff wrong with you. That's right. They're always running around here talking about, I'm a Baptist, I'm born a Baptist, I'll die a Baptist. What a bunch of idiots. What a bunch of idiots. So I think it's important that we get that word out to you today, that this call. Now, don't be, I'm going to tell you how, if you want to contact me, you can send me an email. And don't expect me to respond to everything. I'm not on Facebook. my type man, Eric Miller and I, we type. He's in Indianapolis, where God gave me that word out there a few years ago. And in Indianapolis, Eric Miller and I type. But Eric Miller's on Facebook all day long. I'm only on there maybe, my Facebook time is only maybe an hour, not 2 or 3 a week. I'm not on there except when I'm doing this. I don't, occasionally I might see something, but if you post up something and I don't respond to it, because I ain't on Facebook, I got other things I'm doing. I'm the Lord's Church. I got a whole lot of stuff I'm doing, praying, reading, studying, and then Elizabeth and I got to sit down and eat. So I'm not on there. So send me an email, and it may take me 2 or 3 weeks to get to it. Don't think I forgot about you and I ain't going to get to you. I'll get to you. But spend the next 7 months looking at this process of what we just said. And those of you who have an ear, Mariah Collins, those of you who haven't here, listen to the truth of what I just said. The government is not in control anymore. The government's hands are tied. They're not in control of the economy anymore. The virus is. Listen to that. And I'm the Lord's servant, and God's in control of the virus. Listen to that. Listen. And then run and tell everybody you know. Run and tell everybody you know. You need to hear what God is saying through his servant, James David Manning. Stop being a fool all your life. Got these women talking about they're going to marry another woman. Got these preachers standing in the pulpit, sleeping in the bed with another man. Coming to the pulpit, smelling like feces on his breath. And got these women, LGBTQ, sucking on another woman's paps. That's sick. You ever seen anything as sick as that? There's this Victoria commercial where at the end of it, these two Hamite brothers kiss one another. It's disgusting. But you know what's even more disgusting, if that's possible, is to see two 50-year-old Hamite women, right? Church women, sucking each other's titties, talking about Obama said it's okay for us to do it. Sick! Sick! And then y'all let these people tell you and your children to hate me. I'm the Lord's servant. You let these women, 50 years old, some 60 years old, got her mouth on another woman's titties, sucking and sucking and sucking. And they say that's of God, that Jesus said that's okay. And got these men with their feces breath coming to the pulpit, or serving on the deacon board, in the church, or in the political office, telling you to hate me because I condemn it. I condemn it because Harriet Tubman condemns it. I condemn it because Malcolm X condemns it. I condemn it because Adam Clayton Powell Jr. condemns it. I condemn it because Martin King condemns it. I condemn it because Frederick Douglass condemns it. I condemn it because your grandfather and your grandmother condemned that vile, if you will, demonic activity. Yes, I condemn it. These young people running around here watching this porn and then hating me. No, those days are up and over with. So if you want to contact me through my email address at atlah1@aol.com. And you can watch our broadcast. We do a broadcast, and we're going to try to do a broadcast Monday through Thursday every week. On Friday, we take a Sabbath break. And then on Saturday at 10 o'clock, we're back up with the pulpit of power. Go to atlah.org, and you can find the information, or you can go to ATLAH1. You want to write to me at atlah1@aol.com, and I will get to you if you want to be a part of this great movement when Harlem collapses like the walls of the Colosseum when Samson pushed those columns. Good God Almighty. Good God Almighty. Good God Almighty. All right, my friend. I'm going to go to Diarra one more time. I know that we have been playing her, and we haven't gotten a lot of, well, we've been getting a lot of praise for Diarra. We played a lot of 12 watts. But Mr. Engineer, would you bring up Diarra, who has our anthem, a white flag, and that's going to take us to the top. Don't forget, your financial support is so very important to you, because God will bless you. It's called the Joseph Zaphnath Payonel Investment Fund. You go to Genesis chapter 41, verse 45, you'll find where God names, where the Pharaoh names Joseph, the son of Jacob, Zaphnath Payonel. And then you go to Genesis chapter 26, verse 13, where you see that Isaac, who didn't do a lot in the Bible, but what he did do in the time of the first famine of Egypt, he sowed. And the Bible said God blessed him 100-fold. That's 26:12. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Engineer. Isaac sowed in the land in the time of famine and received 100-fold. And so we're going to have 100-fold million sowing into, we're waiting on the sale of the brownstones, the Marriott Hotel, and all the other fancy restaurants, when God will return to the people that rightfully should be the owners here. And I'm going to be their leader, and I'll be your leader too. But you got to subscribe to righteousness. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant, Mr. Engineer. Bring up Diara.
I know you think that I shouldn't still love you or tell you that. Well, if I didn't say it, well, I still have felt it. And where's the sense in that? I promise I'm not trying to make your life harder or return to where we were. But I will go down with this ship, and I will put my hands up and surrender. There will be no white flag above my door. I'm in love and always will be. I know I left too much mess and destruction to come back again. And I cause nothing but trouble. I understand if you won't talk to me again. And if you live by the rules of it's over, then I'm sure that that makes sense. But I will go down with this ship, and I will put my hands up and surrender. There will be no white flag above my door, 'cause I'm in love and always. And when we meet, which I'm sure we will, all that was there will be there still. And I'll let it pass and hold my tongue, and you will think that I moved on. And I won't put my hands up and surrender. There will be no white flag above my door, 'cause I'm in love and always will. I will go down with this ship, and I won't put my hands up and surrender. There will be no white flag above my door, 'cause I'm in love and always will be. And we will go down with this ship, and we won't put our hands up and surrender. There will be no white flag above our doors, 'cause we're in love and always will be.
Hallelujah.
It'll make a junkie say Jesus is Lord. I got a word in my mouth. I got a word in my mouth.
Makes my world go round, set my feet on holy ground. Jesus makes my world go round, set my feet on coming out of Bethlehem. Insight coming out of Bethlehem. 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy.
ATLAH. That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said.
Makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Set my feet on holy ground.
ATLAH's coming.
Set my feet on holy ground.
ATLAH's coming.
Set my feet on holy ground. Jesus, a righteous city. ATLAH, that's what God said. Fire. 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy.
ATLAH. That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said.
Makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Jesus makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Insight coming out of Bethlehem. Makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Jesus makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Insight coming out of Bethlehem. Insight coming out of Bethlehem. Jesus make my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. I say ATLAH's coming. Oh. ATLAH's coming. Oh.
That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said.
ATLAH. That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said. I got another word for you as well. God said, each person you see without a mask is a mass murderer. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Manning Report. I'm the quintessential American, James David Manning. I'm the Lord's servant. And we're in day 21 now of the month of May in the year 2020. Generally, I don't dateline every messages, but because of the coronavirus powers, I'm going ahead and datelining because I also want to point out that on yesterday, the World Health Organization announced that it was the largest one-day reporting of deaths since they have been recording deaths going back to November of last year. A total of 106,000 cases of coronavirus infection was reported from four major countries, Germany and Moscow and America and London were the four perpetrators of these, reporters rather, of this 106,000 infections of the coronavirus. So even with the opening up of America, the cases are still going up and the deaths are going up as well. The global deaths so far has been 328,000 plus, and in America, when I made this report earlier this morning at the crack of dawn, it was 93,000 people that had died in America alone. Now, all these numbers can be probably looked at with a factor from 3 to 10 because they're certainly not accurate, and Johns Hopkins University is probably being as cautious and conservative as reporting, but you know, a lot of people die. And if they have not been diagnosed as with coronavirus, and they don't get put in the category of the 93,000 people or the ones that are infected. But I want to say this, that as we now get ready to head for round 2 of the coronavirus, which will happen as a result of the cessation of the coughing and sneezing season that we normally find in the summer months. Now, these viruses that are usually associated with the winter months are not necessarily, if you will, climate controlled in that regard. What happens when these viruses that are aerosol sprayed, or if they were contact through the expressions of the aerosol or coughing and sneezing, there is less coughing and sneezing in the summer months than there is in the winter months. And the deeper the winter, the more people getting cold, the more people get influenza. Well, that influenza virus is still around in the summer months. However, its main mode of transportation from one person to the other as a communicable disease is by coughing and sneezing. And so when the weather gets warmer, people stop catching colds and coughing and sneezing. And so the opportunity for the virus to break out of the person that's carrying it and give it to someone else becomes very limited. But soon as those coughing and sneezing starts all over again in October and November and deep down into December, you're going to see a second rise of this. And by the way, I'm not prognosticating something that I am delighted about, but every epidemiologist will tell you, and people of the medical profession will tell you, that there's never been a virus that has only had one small season. And after that, even with the vaccine, people are still going to have to, it can take 3 to 10 years before the vaccine can catch up with a point where people can be pretty much immune to the process, enough people with antibodies, and what you get, what they now refer to in the, I suppose, in the healthcare industry of infectious disease as herd immunity. That could take 3 to 7 years for that to take place. So we're going to see round 2 in November, and it could be worse than round 1. And most people are anticipating that it will be. If we've seen 93 deaths in 3 months here in America, we can expect to see 3 times that much from November to May of 2021. I don't say that with delight. You can just listen to the other epidemiologists and others, the virologist, Dr. Fauci, if he's still allowed to speak. The Center for Disease Control has been actually clamped down. Let me quickly express as well that if you will remove your prejudice about me, and though for whatever reason you still listen to me, but you have a prejudice, you really have been taught by the satanic principles and the powers that rule this world. This is not his kingdom. But you listen to me because there's just something in what I say that attracts you to listen to what I say, but you're not willing to fully commit. And you definitely, under no circumstances, would you submit the authority of me in your life. But you listen anyway, and then you take the truth that you hear and you move around with it and profit yourself as best you possibly can. You've always been a sneaky, backdoor person. You've always been a deceitful person with a dark spirit. And that's why you will not come forward to say, Pastor Manning, I'm with you. But having said that, remember when you greatly agreed with me when I said that Obama was a long-legged Mac Daddy. Even Howard Stern had me on for a year saying Obama was a long-legged Mac Daddy. And I got that from God. But I also got the fact that Donald John Trump is the trigger of the tribulation. He's tribulation Trump. But because that's the other side of the fence and the grass is different, you are not willing to accept that. You're not willing to promote that because of your individual prejudices and other kinds of idiosyncrasies and a dark spirit that is deceitful. It's a smile in your face, but it's not really in your place spirit. But I'm going to tell you, everybody you see without a mask is a mass killer. Mr. Engineer, I don't know if we have Tribulation Trump with and his everybody got on the mask except him. That boy is a mass killer. And we're going to point this out as it goes along. Anyone you see on the streets of America or on the streets of Europe without a mask is that M-A-S-K is a M-A-S-S killer, because that's how that disease is spread from one place to another. And Trump won't put on a mask because he's the trigger of the tribulation. He's a mass killer. The boy is a killer. The boy is a killer, to be absolutely sure. Now, today we got an extraordinary broadcast. We're going to have a couple of the men of our congregation talk to us about the experience of having the coronavirus. But quickly, Mr. Engineer, we're going to come up with Elder Smith in just a moment. But I want to quickly pop in Nancy Pelosi's statement regarding Tribulation Trump talk that and all of his followers that got dog do on their shoe. Mr. Engineer, roll clip number one real quick, and then Elder Smith, hang tight. I'm going to pick you up in just one moment. Mr. Engineer, roll that clip real quick.
So completely inappropriate and so many. You're asking me about the appropriateness of the actions of this president of the United States? So completely inappropriate in so many ways that it's almost a given. It's like a child who comes in with mud on their pants or something. That's the way it is. They're outside playing. That's what he comes in with doggy do on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes too for a very long time to come. So I don't know. I hear doctors talk to me about saying, what's the matter with him? The things he says are so inappropriate for a president of the United States. The comments he makes about women. So inappropriate. So no, I don't think it's appropriate. But again, there's a market for it, obviously, and that's what he plays to. I didn't say anything about the president. I gave him a dose of his own medicine. He's called women one thing or another over time, and I thought he thinks that passes off as humor in certain cultures, and I thought that was what that was. And I was only quoting what doctors had said about him, so I was being factual in a very sympathetic way. I said he's our president. We don't want our president dangerous, as the scientists have said it could be. If he takes offense at that, well, I could take offense at a lot of things, but they don't really mean that much to me. But again, a dose of his own medicine.
All right, so this is going to get better and hotter and sweeter as it goes along. the back and forth between Nancy Pelosi and Tribulation Trump. And Tribulation Trump is lashing out at everybody. I got a news flash, program director for that there has been an there's been opening of an investigation in Kiev, Ukraine, that Joe Biden committed a crime there. Now, going back to the Ukrainian, if you will, investigation with Tribulation Trump and the impeachment hearing, now they are now trying to raise the issue that Biden is going to be, there is an open investigation that's going to be open, which is what Tribulation Trump asked the Ukrainian president to do in order to get the arms released of those those missiles that he wanted released. And Trump asked him, if you'll do me a favor to the Ukrainian president, I'll release that military might. Now we understand that that investigation is now going to go forward. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll keep you up to snuff on that. But right now we want to bring up one of the tried and true and stayed elders of the ATLAH World Missionary Church, Elder Joseph Smith, who a couple of months ago now was diagnosed with the coronavirus event. And he went through that process, and I want him to talk to you today. I'm going to ask him some questions because I don't think people, if you have not had it, you don't know how deadly it is and how close to death you can get. So, Elder Smith, are you there today?
Good morning, sir.
I think I see his lips moving, but I don't hear it. I don't hear any sound. Are you there, Elder?
I'm here.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. every time I hear that "Can you hear me" thing, there was a commercial from many years ago. Can you hear me, Elder? How you doing now?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you, Pastor. Thank you for having me this morning.
Now you haven't returned to work yet, have you?
I have. I actually went back to my workplace a couple of weeks now.
Oh, for a couple of weeks. Okay. All right. Well, the reason why I brought you on, Elder, is because we prayed with you through the process of your having that bout with the coronavirus. And I want you to talk to people. A lot of people have not had that experience, and they don't know how debilitating it can be. But you got diagnosed. Now, you work for the U.S. Postal Service, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
How do you think you contracted that virus? What do you think that brought it on?
Well, I'm like 99% sure that I got it in the workplace. This is going back the beginning of March, really before any of the restrictions that we are in now went into place. And I was in a meeting with an individual who actually came back from traveling. He's from Jamaica, believe it or not. And he was even explaining to me how the conditions were in the airport at the time. And, we had our meeting and we went about our business. The funny thing was, well, not funny, but I walked around for a few days. You heard them mention about people being asymptomatic.
Right.
And I walked around probably 4 or 5 days after that, not knowing that I was in contact with somebody. And then it was made public at the job, and immediately when I found that out, I knew that I had to remove myself from the workplace because I was in contact with this person, even though I hadn't yet myself got tested. And then, of course, I called you. That was the evening I called you before the Sabbath. I said, Pastor, I can't come back into the church until I get some kind of confirmation. Right. Obviously, I didn't want to come and infect the congregation.
So you called this as an occupational contact. You weren't in a public social gathering. You were at work where this took place.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct, sir.
So now, how long were you out of work trying to kick this virus?
I was out about 5.5 weeks.
That long?
Yeah,
that's nearly a month and a half.
Because what happened was after that initial call to notifying people that were in contact, about 3 or so days later is when I got tested. I went to one of those drive-through places there, and they stick that thing all the way up your nose. It's going to choke you to death. And then I got the results after that. And once I got the results, I knew I had the basic quarantine is 2 weeks, but it really is longer than that. And then I just started to have symptoms, and it just
when did you start having the symptoms and feeling the dreadness of it, and tell us how it first came upon you. I mean, when you got tested, you weren't feeling sick, right?
Oh, yeah. I was already starting to have symptoms prior to getting tested. I had this horrible cough. That cough, I got to tell you, Pastor, you cannot shake it. You just imagine something that's invading your body, and you can't get it out. It's like this thing says, "I'm not leaving until I'm ready to go." And then that started first with the cough. Then I got the fever. The fever was horrible. I mean, it racks your body from head to toe. You can't move. You don't have any. It's like somebody took your taste buds out. You don't have any taste.
You lost your taste buds as well. You lost that also.
Yeah. I had no taste. And the fever didn't last a whole week. It lasted maybe 3 days. The whole fever process.
Were you sweating, perspiring? Were you?
Yes.
Could you sleep?
And headaches.
Could you sleep? During that
I
time?
never get headaches, and I had headaches, and then the fever and the body aches. It was just horrible. You don't even want to get out of bed. You don't want to move.
And was there any other kind of pain?
Really, that was the primary, and then again that cough. That cough is so persistent. And everyone has had a cough from time to time where you produce phlegm or mucus, and then you wait for that to come up, and that's a sign that the cold is leaving you.
Right.
But this cough is like totally different than that. I've never experienced anything like this. It's a dry, persistent cough, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like when you cough, you're just going to cough, and it'll stop for a few minutes, and then you start coughing again.
Did you have a shortness of breath as well? Did that take place?
That was the one symptom that, thank God, it did not get to attack the depth of my respiratory system. What you see, many of the people that had to be hospitalized.
Well, let me ask you this: did you get the fever a second time? Did it come on you a second time? Did you have the fever?
I did, but what happened was then I called my physician, and when I felt a little bit that the symptoms might be waning a bit, I called my physician. I asked him to send me over an antibiotic to my local pharmacy, and I had it picked up and delivered to my house, and that seemed to help a little bit with the coughing. But it took, at that point it was already 3.5 weeks in, so it took some time for the symptoms to begin to wane, and eventually.
You were talking. Let's say it's May now. So you were talking the end of March and at least half of April. Is that right, that you were going through this period?
Well, it began. The contact began the beginning of March, around the 6th or so of March, so the first week of March.
Right.
And then it took those few days before I got diagnosed. I was out basically almost the whole month of April. So the rest of March, and then I think I went back to work April, the last week in April, I believe, is when I went back to work.
Let me ask you this, then. You were sick during the worst death reports here in New York City, where they were calling for ventilators, and you were watching these refrigerated trucks with bodies being thrown in them. You were watching hospitals being overworked, and there people on these gurneys out in the hallway. And there was this was the first rising of all those people dying so rapidly. That's when you had your great sickness. Is that right? Is that the same time?
That is absolutely correct. And let me say thank you for your prayers and all of the family and members of the ATLAH World Missionary Church that contacted me and texted me and let me know that they're praying for me. And I got to tell you that that's so important. And then again, of course, the fact that you've given us the word leading up into this, prior to this event, your teaching. But, I also, Pastor, while I was home and all those things that were going on that you mentioned, I was getting text messages and calls frequently of people that were dying on my job. We lost at least 10 people in our facility from this coronavirus. So I was sitting in my bed, and I almost wanted to turn my phone off, because it would seem like every other day I was getting a report of somebody dying on the job. I can't tell you how disturbing that was, to be getting those kind of messages while I myself was laying up in the bed with this thing.
Now, I know you're a member of the elect. Sure enough, boom, shakalaka, stomp down. There ain't no doubt in my mind about that, Elder. There ain't no doubt in my mind at all about that. I understand that. I know that. But I got to ask you, did you think you were going to die?
the one night, well, I don't know if I honestly if I thought I
I
was
mean,
going to
because
die.
they're calling you now, and 10 people around you died in the same place you work, right?
It gets very dark. It got very dark in my house, and I had my 93-year-old father. I had to move him out also right away. He never was in the house at once I knew I was in
How's your
contact
father
with this
doing, by the
person.
way? He's 93 years old.
But there was one night that it was kind of bad. I was just laying on this bed and I said, "What is going on here?" Because you you don't think you're supposed to get that. You say, "I remember the look. I ain't getting no daggone virus." And well, here comes that virus knocking on the door. So, but it was the strength of your prayers and the strength of your teaching, really, really, that brought me over the hump. I had not had that, I probably would have been thinking I was checking out of here, because that thing would have had me down for the count, and I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. There's no defense against this thing. Your body, when it's in your body, it's just in your body, and that's it. You can't do nothing until it either takes you out or it leaves, and that's pretty much how it is.
Now, you've been tested negative now, and so you're back at work. But do you have concerns that even though you're back at work and their temperatures are taken, I guess, mornings when they come in, and they ask questions as to whether or not they are still carrying the virus in them? Do you think that perhaps there's asymptomatic people still around that, and the doctors have not reported that having it is guarantee of being immune? You do know that medical report as well, is that right?
Yes, sir, I do. Yes. But I don't think, the only thing I can pray is that the whole idea of having the antibodies prevents you from getting it again. Now, obviously, that has not yet been proven 100% positive. They believe, at least the last reports that I heard, they believe that there is a degree where if you had the antibodies and you have a means of protection, but again, that hasn't been proven. So I'm praying that that's the case, and then I won't have to worry about at least that part anymore. But when I do everything that I can, when I'm in the workplace, I wear a mask. By the way, they don't test people when they come in, so people are just coming in the building, and if they have it, they come in there. In fact, last week we had 3 people that had to go out quarantine because they tested positive. So that's still going on. But when I'm out, the very few times I'm out in public, and when I'm traveling to work, I'm just in my car, going to the building, back in my car, and back in my house. And only if I have to go to get some necessities, food supplies, and I go out in public, then I have a mask on. But to answer your question, I just pray that, that initial bout with it now has given me a defense for any future infections.
I believe that the virus now, once you have it and then you don't have it anymore, that there are antibodies, because several of the media staff here all came down with 104 temperatures and that same thing you're having, and then in a couple of days it was gone. So I think they're pretty safe at present. I'd go ahead and bet on that. Listen, Elder, we're so delighted and thankful to God that you made it. I never thought for one second you were not going to make it. I never did. But I'm delighted. We need you so desperately. You're such an integral part. You've been in this church for several decades, and your ministry is so absolutely critical to what we do. And so we thank God that you're still with us, and you're going to step over the ditch called the grave with us, and we're going to keep on serving the Lord together. I'm glad you took the time today to talk to us as well, and so people that haven't seen your face, because it's been months now since anybody's seen your face or heard your voice. But thank God you're here today. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Pastor. God bless you.
God bless you, Elder. All right, everybody, we're going to take a break, and we're going to bring up Memphis Williams, who's also a member of our church for a goodly number of years. But after this break, we're going to talk with yet another long-term member of our congregation who has some words he wants to say, some inside information I think he wants to report to us that perhaps will be a first here on the Manning Report. But stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back with more of the Manning Report.
When you see the school for Allah. Leaders all over the world will never turn to
All right, everybody, thank God for the ATLAH High. And ATLAH High students, I understand that Superintendent LaFleur requires all of you to continue to listen to the Trust in the Lord Hour. So I suppose you heard this morning's first hour, and you're hearing every other morning's first hour. So you haven't seen y'all in quite some time. We've got to figure out a way how to get back to the type of schooling process that we've had in times gone by. We want to bring up Captain Memphis Williams now, who is who also came down with the coronavirus affliction about the same time as Elder Smith came down with that virus, and he too, I think, lost his sense of taste and smell. So, do we have the Captain Williams on the line with us at present? Captain, are you there?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Yeah, all
Decent,
right.
good morning.
All right, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Much better now.
Are you still lingering from the effects of the coronavirus, or are you completely, healed and back up and about?
Well, thankfully, I am healed and back up and about, currently working from home as well.
Okay, so you're privileged to be able to do that. Could you tell us a little bit about, how long were you under the affliction of this, and what did it feel like? I know you reported in several times to me that you couldn't taste or couldn't smell. Walk us through what that was like, Captain, from day one until where we are.
Absolutely. So, interesting enough, it started back in March, earlier this March. Funny, because of the nature of where I worked, I was actually going to attend a major conference out in Texas, but I was always keeping, informed. I was keeping myself informed by looking at all of the news reports and things like that, and this virus was just spreading at an alarming rate. So I just raised my hand at my job and told them, like, hey guys, I think this thing is going to be really serious, and that I'm going to back out of going to the conference. And they all kind of was like, well, we understand, and things like that. And then before you know it, it just hit like a bomb. So by then I was already, I stopped going to work because I have to travel and transportation, and I was just getting concerned. So I had opted out of going to work, and I continued to work from home. But then what happened was my wife, she attended college here in New York. And so she had received a phone call from her dean informing her that she was around someone who had tested positive. So by then, she was already at home with me, because this is when they had enacted the stay-at-home quarantine. Right. And so when she received the call, I knew then something was wrong, and I was like, oh man, she was definitely exposed. And then literally like 1 or 2 days after that call, she came down with it. And so she was sick, bedridden, and that time I was helping to take care of her. And so I would say roughly about a day or so after she was bedridden, I started feeling the symptoms. Like it almost felt like when you get the flu, where you sort of feel like a flu coming on, you kind of get the, sore throat and aching body and pains. And so I said to myself, like, yeah, this is a corona, because then that following day, it hit me hard. And, my body was aching, my joints were hurting.
You're saying that your wife went down before you went down, even though you realized this conference in Texas could be, dangerous. But she went down
absolutely.
before you went.
Yeah, and that was a funny thing, is because I did everything in my power to avoid going to the conference to get the virus, and then I ended up contracting it from her. And so during that period, it just felt like the flu times 10, like all the pains and the aches and symptoms that come with the flu. Just like imagine that, multiplied by 10. And I knew for me, because it was still kind of doubt, like, well, maybe it isn't the corona. But then I started feeling chest pains, and it felt like
did you have shortness of breath?
Pains.
Did you have shortness of breath as well?
I didn't have the shortness of breath, but I did have the symptom of the chest pains, and that's what I had read. During my time when I was researching this stuff, I read that like chest pains was a symptom. And the thing with viruses is that not since everyone is different, not everyone would experience the same type of symptoms. And then also, since this is a novel virus, meaning it's new, they don't know what the symptoms are. Like, symptoms could start popping up in different people that aren't in others. But I knew when I started feeling those stabbing chest pains, that's when I really got concerned.
Well, what about your wife? What about your wife? Did she have chest pains? And then my next question is, the both of you are now bedridden, whooped by this virus, a pain that you probably never had before. And how did the two of y'all maneuver that? I mean, you were taking care of her when she first went down.
Yeah, and then it was funny because we were, like you said, we were both laying up in here together, as thick as a dog, and we did our best to try to consume as much liquids as possible. And one of the things, because I work in the medical field, so I'm privy to a lot of information on like viruses and things like that. And one of the things I kept stressing was to just wrap ourselves up so we can raise our temperatures, because basically when you get a fever, that's your body fighting off viral infections and things. And so we just stuck to that and just consumed a lot of liquids, and with limited mobility, so try not to get up as much as possible. And when any of us did have to get up to say use the bathroom, it was a very painful experience.
Let me ask you this question, and if you're unable to respond, I understand. But I know you work in the medical profession, and you've been in this industry now for a goodly number of years, and you're not a side player in this. You're a major player in global medicine. I understand that. Is there something that's going on with all of these various testings and the hydroxychloroquine and Rendivas and is there, and the CDC, is there something that maybe you could tell us that won't get you into any kind of, problem, Captain?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing I will say, and this is something that I believe is happening with the current situation, and it's information that obviously will never get out to the public. But before the onset of all of this COVID-19 pandemic, there was already an epidemic going on in hospitals, and you've probably heard of it. It's known as the superbugs. Yeah. And basically what that is your typical viruses like pneumonia and things like that. In the hospital settings, those viruses are like super versions of the regular pneumonia, and the only reason they've gotten like that is because the very nature of hospitals and that they have to sterilize their equipment and clean them. And so what the side effect of that is that the viruses adapted to that sterilization, basically becoming stronger so they can repel that sterilization. So that's why when you hear things like people go in the hospital and they die of pneumonia, it's not the regular pneumonia you and I would catch when we're just normally outside. It's a super version of that. And so what I believe to be happening is that these people that are going into the hospital with COVID already have a weakened immune system. They're getting killed, struck by these superbugs that are already living and thriving there. And so, and they're catching these things from these ventilators and these other IVs and equipments that are being rotated around quickly. So you can imagine it's this pandemonium up in there. So the sterilization process is probably all crazy right now because people are dying so fast. And so basically going up into the hospital is just like, exacerbating your death. Dangerous. Yeah, it's very, very dangerous. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to go to the hospital, because I was like, I'm better off here than if I were to go there. I'd probably end up dying because I'll catch one of those superbugs in a weakened state already, which is just ravage you. And as I said, they're not going to say this because this is a problem that's been in the U.S. for a long time, and it's in numerous hospitals, but they won't release that data information to actually reveals the amount of people that die from these diseases, because then it's going to limit the amount of people who want to go to the hospital. Like if you knew Presbyterian had a high rate of the people dying of superbugs, you're not going to want to go there. And so these hospitals don't, they don't disclose that information. And so you see these rapid deaths of people from COVID in these hospitals. They're contracting those superbugs and they're dying from that. But what they'll say is just it's COVID related. They died from COVID related. They won't exactly say what killed the person. They'll just say it's COVID related. So COVID just enabled these other viruses to get in there and just ravage these people.
Well, I'm watching what's going on now with this race to discover a virus to counteract the coronavirus, and all of these various corporations, medical corporations, GlaxoSmithKline and a bunch of others. They're all racing to the French people, the American people, and then of course any drug that's going to be used, Captain, has to be approved by the Federal Drug Administration.
Yes.
But I'm also watching now under the Trump administration the requirements for testing and making sure that a drug is safe has been lessened. First of all, I want to ask you, how safe is the drug industry in the first place? I mean, I don't think people are going to put killer drugs out on the street.
No, absolutely, and that, because obviously that's going to hurt their profitability. But so this is the way, because I've worked on a particular product that specialized in this field of combating like viruses and things. And so what happens is that they're racing to try to, because this is new, so they're throwing everything at it to try to see what sticks, basically. That's basically what happened, and they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And them rushing to, like, put a vaccine on the market, it normally takes about over 10 years for a vaccine to actually go through its trials to see if it actually works, because you got to think, because the thing they're monitoring during that 10-year period is the side effects. Because as I mentioned earlier, no two people are alike. So you may respond to something different from another person. And so you have to test these vaccinations on different ethnic cultures, different age groups and everything. And that takes a long time to do. And also, not only does it take a long time to do, but it takes billions of dollars to do. And what has happened is that a lot of companies have pulled out of the market of making vaccines, because, as I mentioned earlier, you remember I said how viruses, they evolve and get stronger. So imagine, as a company, you invest billions of dollars, 10 years into a vaccine, for when you put it on the market, the virus is then going to, repel it in, say, like 3 to 5 years. And so now you got to go through that whole process all over again. So as you can imagine, from a business standpoint, it's not a good investment. But now with things like this COVID, this is sort of like a business opportunity, if you will.
And that's what's frightening. I mean, that's what's so frightening, Captain Williams, that people see this as a mega money-making opportunity.
It is.
I think the global populace ought to be very, very suspicious of any drug.
They should be.
That they can say by January of next year, June, that it will be ineffective. I wouldn't take it. I think you might. I would take my chances. And the other thing you pointed out, the superbugs in the hospitals, you're absolutely right about that. Listen, I'm going to have to wrap this up. How's your wife doing? Is she up and about now?
Oh yeah, she's doing great. We're both doing great, and as Elder Smith mentioned, we thank everyone for their prayers. And I will admit, when I had those chest pains and stuff, I did think like, oh man, is this my time? I hope I have everything set in place, and I'll let you know, from a financial standpoint, I have everything, my wife's name, I have the church's name, so if anything happens, everything is going to my wife in the church. But the thought did cross my mind, because especially when I had those pains, I never felt anything like that in my life before.
I know that's right. Y'all got a big day coming up next month, less than a month from now. So, but the Lord has preserved you. He's going to keep you and your wife around for a very, very long time, for the next 1,000 years. So you got to get used to living. and not of dying. Captain Memphis, it's so good to talk to you today. I'm glad to hear your voice. You know, the last time you were in church, you sat with me at the pulpit and said to me, Pastor, you know, my company has scheduled me to attend a major conference in Texas. And,
That's right.
And I don't know if I'm going to go. That's the last time you and I talked. That was going back a couple of months ago now. And I'm glad you made the decision not to go. We need you and we need your wife around for a very long time. It's so good to hear your voice. Can't wait till we can get back together again, but I'm looking forward to the big celebration coming up very shortly. Got to go, Captain. Thank you so very much for sharing with us today. God bless you.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace.
Talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
We've come to announce the tribulation, the massive killing machine of the unrepentant, the massive killing machine that God will use. War, rumors of war, earthquakes in diverse places, famines and pestilence. You know, when God killed off that crowd during the days of Noah, the preacher of righteousness, the Bible says, when God killed off that crowd, he only used the flood. But this is massive killing machine in this modern day. God has put to work the earthquakes, the rocks, the rats, the famine, all of which will pursue you and hunt you down until you are dead. And what will be left will be the elect. All right, we're back talking about viruses, coronavirus, COVID-19, the AIDS virus, the influenza virus, the Spanish flu, all of these various viruses. And the origin of these viruses is always a mysterious thing. They are a part of a process that I suppose is a part of animal life, not necessarily plant life, biologically. And they continue to evolve. And a lot of people believe that this virus came from a bat. No one knows for sure. I think it was cooked up. I think it was made in Columbia University, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we have more opportunity to evidence that, because right now it's sort of but the AIDS virus struck like death itself, and it was death. Back in the early 80s, I was just starting out as a pastor. And men were dying in prison because homosexuality runs pretty rampant inside of prisons. And AIDS, one of its main conduits is homosexual activity. And the first 10 years or so of the AIDS virus, which is a virus, it's spread by, blood contact, not aerosol contacts. And a large number of the people that were dying were AIDS, were homosexual persons. And so it was a large part of the ministry that we did here. And we had one woman, I'll never forget, I think she had 5 or 7 children, I can't remember now. She came to the church and she joined the church, and she told me she was a young woman in her 30s that she was dying of AIDS, and she wanted the church to take her children. And I baptized her, and I baptized her children. I would get down in the water and baptize people. The water was not necessarily a transference of the AIDS disease. If it was, I was not afraid. Anyway, she died last time I saw her, but her family stepped forward and took the children, and I don't know where they are at present. And this is going back over 30 years ago now. But I used to preach a lot of funerals of young men dying in prison. I didn't know them. There was a funeral home right up the street, and the owner of the funeral home would call me, would you come up and say some words and sign the death certificate? And I did that, and they gave me a few dollars for doing it. But AIDS, they still have not discovered a cure for AIDS. And the reason why I'm doing this intro is because they've got a drug on the market now called Biktarvy. Now, there's several out there, they're competing. And Biktarvy allegedly is a drug that you can take on a daily basis, and it will mask the AIDS virus. It'll mask it in such a way as even if you're given a blood test, the test will not be able to detect it. But it is understood that the AIDS virus is hiding behind the medication. If you stop taking it for a couple of days, it'll show right back up again. And so people are taking it, but it also alleges that you can now have sexual intercourse and pass semen from one person to the other if you're taking Biktarvy on a daily basis, and the AIDS virus will not be able to be transmissible or transmitted through the semen or the passing of fluids, bodily fluids. And so it's hit the market like a storm. But it's 40 years after the AIDS virus, and still there's no cure. And so I'm going to run this promo we've seen on television now to see that you see how this. But there's also a very ugly end to this. That because this promo is seen in all daytime television that has no rating, is not considered R-rated or adult content. And if a child is sitting there watching this, I think it has a devastating effect upon the sexuality of our youth, and probably upon some of our older, weaker people as well. Plus, in this, if we got the right spot today, they seem to have chosen some unseemingly looking people to be the face or the personalities. They've got one woman who is extremely huge, and got another man who looks strange, and you got some Japheth or Latino type people where the woman looks like an Amazon woman and the man looks like one of the Coneheads. It is weird, this commercial. I mean, it is weird. As if they're depicting people with AIDS as somehow or another as freaks. Mr. Engineer, roll that clip.
For people living with HIV, keep being you and ask your doctor about Biktarvy. Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in certain adults. It's not a cure, but with one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to and stay undetectable. That's when the amount of virus is so low, it cannot be measured by a lab test. Research shows people who take HIV treatment every day and get to and stay undetectable can no longer transmit HIV through sex.
Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Do not take Biktarvy if you take dofetilide or rifampin. Tell your doctor about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your doctor. Common side effects were diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
If you're living with HIV, keep loving who you are and ask your doctor if Biktarvy is right for you.
Now, I find that kiss offensive. I think it's abrasive. You know, the LGBT crowd people, they are worse than the mafia. They're gangsters, and they're bullies. It's their way or the highway. And they didn't have to put those two men kissing at the end, because children, this commercial is ran during, regular television time. It's not a late night television commercial, if there is such a thing. And I find it very offensive that they can do that because not everyone wants to see two men kissing. You know, this is just a recent phenomenon as a public display. For the past 10,000 years of history, this will be considered an a uber ugly event for two men to kiss like that. This is just recently that the LGBTQ mafia and their sick and demonic and perverted ideals, and they're forcing this on to humanity. Those two men kissing. The other thing I find strange about this ad is that it, generally you want to promote, a class of people that are relative to whatever product they're trying to sell. And they've got some of the strangest looking people, like the tall woman with the who's taller than the man, who looks like a cone head. And then they got the huge woman who is, terribly obese, laughing and grinning and walking, and then they're washing a dog. It's the fact that they have chosen these people. It's weird. It's really, really weird. I mean, this was put together by some sick mind person to depict it in such a way. Now they're gonna wash the dog. What was the meaning of that? And look at Mr. Conehead and Miss Amazon Woman. I mean, what is this? I'll have more to say about this perversion that is engulfing our world. And I want you to take a close look at the things we've been saying and will continue to say. Don't let the LGBTQ mafia tell you to hate me, or the Obama worshipers, or the Trump worshipers. At any rate, everybody, I'm going to bring up 12 watts. She's going to take us out of here with I'll never break bread and I'll never be defeated. And immediately after this, stay tuned. Sabbath is going to be on tap with Sabbath's current events. And I understand today she's going to be interviewing some of the parents of some of the extraordinary students that are part of our school system. And to you out there, everybody, hang tight. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. There's more to come. I'm James David Manning, and to you out there, peace out. Mr. Engineer, 12 watts.
The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighted in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. I shall never beg bread, I shall never be defeated, for the Lord is my refuge and my strength. I shall never beg bread, I shall never be defeated, for the Lord is my shelter and my shield. For the Lord is my refuge and my strength. I have been young and now am old, yet have I never ever seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He is merciful, yeah, and he is blessed. I shall never beg bread, and I'll never be defeated, for the Lord is our refuge and our shield. We shall never beg bread, we shall never be defeated, for the Lord is our shelter and our shield. For the Lord is our refuge and our strength. everyone out there. I am Sabbath Rachel LaFleur, and in this week's edition of the Current Events class, I have the wonderful pleasure of having some of our beautiful parents here with students in our school, and we are going to be discussing today their perspective as far as being at home with their children with the coronavirus, as well as some other things. But before we get started, I want to introduce everyone to you. So we have Matron Rainbow Farr, who is one of the parents in our school, and I must add that she is a teacher in our school as well. We have Miss Altagracia Rope, who is a parent in our school. She is actually a teacher as well. She teaches Spanish. So hola or buenos tardes, if I'm saying it correctly.
Buenas tardes.
I have Sister Aljaime here with us today. She has 2 children in our high school. And then I have Sister Precious LaFleur, who is not only a parent, but also a teacher in our school. I have Miss Norman, who has 2 beautiful children in our school as well. And last but certainly not least, I have Miss Cabre, who has 2 children in our school as well. Welcome, everyone. How are you doing today?
Good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right, great. Now, we have a lot to discuss in a little bit of time, and I thought about how we're going to do this because when women get together, we can surely talk. But I think it'd be interesting to hear the perspectives of you as parents and how you have been dealing at home, coping with the COVID-19, dealing with your children, having to do online schooling. How's it been for you? And so I want you all to share. So let's get started with that quickly. And Miss Aljaime, I'm going to come to you first. Okay. I want you to share with us what are your experiences? How have you been these last 2 months being at home with your sons? But before you answer that question, I want you to tell us the grades that your sons are in.
Well, I have twins, and they're both juniors, so they're in 11th grade.
Okay. And how's your experience been?
Home, with them being home in quarantine?
Yes, with you.
I feel like I used to homeschool my kids.
Right.
So it's I'm kind of from, I feel like I'm going back to the homeschooling days. The only difference is now that they're older, they're more resistant. So it's like, like it takes longer to get through the day now because I'm constantly on top of them saying, hey, we got to get through this. And they just want to sit around, watch TV.
Right. So is it more of a struggle now for you because they are older?
I feel like, yeah. I feel like, yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. What about you, Miss Norman? How has it been for you?
Well, I have 2 babies. They're not babies, they're big boys. Yeah, Ella is 9 and Ezekiel's 8. And my struggle is that they're in that age where they're not babies anymore and they're not grown, Mm-hmm. So my struggle is to keep them focused because they want to play on their tablets and they just want to be on their electronics. So they want to chat with their friends. They miss being outside. They're also very athletic and they have soccer, taekwondo, and swimming. And now that all that has been taken away, they have all this energy and nowhere to put it. So that has been a struggle on my end. Okay. And Miss Altagracia, how's it been for you?
So I have to say that I love being home with my kids because we are most of the time driving up and down.
Right.
So it's a different experience. It's difficult. It's not easy. It's difficult because my kids my oldest is 10. He goes to 5th grade. And the little ones are 4 and 3 to preschool. So it's difficult for me to have a schedule for the 3 of them.
Right.
I realize that I have to set something different for them, but at the same time, something for me since I'm working from home. And as I say, although I love being home with them, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. And Miss Cabre, how's it been for you with Amir and Dan?
Oh, Lord. I don't know. I can't wait for school to restart. Yes. Like the other lady said, they just want, as soon they woke up, is just to take the tablet or the phone for games.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to take a phone because Dan doesn't have one, to put her away for them to stay focused on the job, the work to what they have to do.
Right.
So it's very, very, very stressful.
Yeah.
And you're going to talk all the day. All the day you have to yell, scream, even sometimes take a charger to follow them so they can stop doing what they was doing. So it's very,
so
very hard.
Okay, so you take their charger away so they can't charge their technology equipment. That's what you're saying?
No. Take the charger like I'm gonna,
Oh. Gotcha.
I have to do that sometimes, so they stand still.
Okay. And Matron LaFleur, how has it been for you at home with your children?
Well, first, I'm usually never home, so this has been a unique experience because this is the longest we were able to stay home. But like the other parents, the work side of it and trying to get them to focus on their schoolwork has been stressful. We have like a limited supplies of computers, so I have to organize who's going to use what and when they're going to use it. And I'm in school as well myself. So that's been stressful. But other than that, we have a schedule here at home, so I try to stick to it. And we have extracurricular activities that we do if they finish their work, so that they won't be on their tablets, like you all said, playing games and just being unfocused.
Right. And Matron Farr, let's get to you. How has it been for you?
Okay, well, unlike everyone else, I only have the one. I have Shadrach, and he's 9 in the 3rd grade. And being a teacher in the school, I've taught Shadrach before. And so I know how he is. I understand my child. And so there are good days and then there are bad days. But I know for me, because I haven't been out he's been out a little bit, like going down to church. So he had the opportunity to like leave the house. But since the virus started, the shutdown, I haven't been able to leave the house. So it's becoming, I think, a little bit more stressful for me. And so, sometimes I know like parents can like have a glass of wine, to wind down. But because I have like a little medical history, like this is my Poland Spring. This is right here. Regardless of this every single day. Normally a pre-K kindergarten teacher. I am not a 3rd grade teacher. I love him to death. But I now made it a point now because Jeremiah, he graduated last year. Shadrach is now Jeremiah's responsibility. I said, only if you need under dire circumstances do you come to me, because I'm also in school. So I have to do my schoolwork and I work from home as well. And so, but now I'm on Jeremiah, because if I did it, then I would be outside with the rest of those people walking around with
with a sign.
So what I'm hearing from all of you, and though some of you enjoy being at home with your children, is the stress of doing online learning with children, and primarily because they want to talk with their friends all day. So let me ask you all this question: how do you balance? How do you keep sanity? How do you unwind? Because these are stressful days. We have to be inside. It's going on 2 months now that we've been indoors, that we've been quarantined now. How do you unwind? How do you keep your sanity? Ms. Cabaret, how do you keep your sanity?
I will say that's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with doing that.
Okay. So how do you find ways to relax after dealing with the stress of the children and getting them to do their schoolwork?
I only relax when they in bed. That's the only time I can relax.
I totally understand.
Yeah. Trust me, as a parent, I totally understand that.
I have to send them to bed. Every day we fight for that. I send them to bed by 9. They want to play until 11, until 12. I said, no, you go to bed. So when they go to bed, I can relax.
Yeah,
that's the only time. Yeah.
Okay. And Miss Alhami, how do you find time to unwind or relax?
Well, I try to keep a schedule. I'm top of the kids, even though they like to drag the day on.
Mm-hmm.
And when everything gets done, I go to the room and either I'll be praying or meditating, or I'll, I just say, praise God. We live in the time where we have FaceTime, and I can see someone else's face and see them smile and laugh, and just thankful. That I'm still here.
Yeah, amen.
Because I had gotten very sick, and I know you know that I had gotten very sick. I caught the COVID early. And so I'm just, grateful to be here, and just grateful that I can be with my family still. So.
Amen. Praise God for that. Ms. Norman, what about you? How do you unwind or relax?
Ooh, I agree totally. When they go to bed, that is my quiet time. And I also find it helpful that in the morning to have my quiet time. If I don't take up that space, and I put on my, thank God for YouTube, I put on my worship music, and I take my time to be before they wake up, because my body's still on the same schedule regardless if we're not getting dressed for school. So I take on my quiet time, I make my coffee, and I have that space by myself, and then I do my to-do list and make my plan for the day, which sometimes the plan has to go to the garbage completely. But at least the fact that I'm a very structured person, and that works for me. So I try to put that structure, also because I work from home, as you know. So I have to balance picking up my phone calls, making sure that the clients hear me, and I'm not screaming at the children at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, if I take out that moment to put myself, in my center and get through my day like that, then it makes everything a little better.
A little better.
And like everybody said, some days are awesome, and some days are really like that I'm ready to throw in the towel, and I'm like, please take them back. Open up the schools today.
And Miss Rope, what about you?
So for me, I have my quiet time also when they go to sleep. I send them to bed at 9, even if they stay awake, but I know that they are in a safe place.
Yeah.
So at nighttime and early in the morning. Mm-hmm. I'm also studying, so it's not really quiet time. It's the time that I take to do my things.
Yeah.
So as long as I can do a little bit of what I have to do, study and work, that's fine for me.
And Machen LaFleur, what about you?
Like Miss Norman just stated, I try to do it early in the morning before they get up. I try to wake up before them. So maybe around 5:30, I'm up. I have 4 children. My oldest is 12. My youngest is 3. Mm-hmm. So it's been very difficult trying to balance everything. Right. But as Ms. Alejandra stated, I'm also very structured, and I need that structure. So that's why I schedule everything. So if I get half of the things done, I feel like I had a productive day. Yes. And if I don't, then I don't feel productive at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Machen Farr, you told us that you drink your Poland Spring water and pretend it is wine. So we pretty much know how you kind of relax and unwind. Let me move on. Let me ask you all this question, because there's some other things that I want to talk about as well in the time that we have. How has the school affected you as parents? How has it affected your parents? I'm sorry, how has it affected your family, should I say, and how has it helped you? Let's start with Ms. Rope.
Affected in what sense?
In a positive way, in a way that better helps you. How has the school been with your children? What do you feel about the school?
I love the school. At the beginning, I had Zarek only, and it was hard for me to find a peaceful, productive, a good school. Mm-hmm. After Miss Grisby is a lady that does the after-school program, she told me several times to go to the school. And finally, I went, and it's been a complete difference for Zarek because he experienced different schools.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids, the little ones, they were so used to go to pick up Zarek that everybody knew them before they were enrolled. So the school has been like a second family, like a family for the kids and for me, and they feel safe there. So it's
Praise
been very
God.
good for us. Mm-hmm.
Praise God. What about you, Miss Norman?
Well, you guys know I love you, but let me tell you, it's been like a 360 because not only they've been in charter schools, we moved to North Carolina for a year, so they had to experience a whole different state. And when I came back, I put them back into the same charter school they were in just because it was easy and they had their information. But I was looking for a summer camp for them, and I found out through a parent that you guys have summer camp. So I've passed by a million times, but I had no idea you guys had the summer camp. And once they were enrolled in summer camp and I found out about the school, it was like easy peasy because the kids had such a great time. They always spoke so highly of everyone there. And they can't stop talking about all the good food that I could never have time to eat. But they're always talking about how, like, it's just like they felt it was an immediate, like, and immediately I knew that it was the right choice because their reactions, they had never said that about another school, you know.
Wow.
like other students, they've been in other, you know, charter schools and this, and you try to look at, you know, all the reviews and you try as a parent to make sure that they're happy. Obviously, that's our number one. So once they in summer camp, they were already ecstatic. I already knew it was going to be the right fit, and I am unbelievably grateful because I feel like I'm just like I lost my mom 2 years ago, and she was like the, you know, not only she was the only person I trusted with my kids, but now I feel like the school is my like they said is my second family. Like I know when I drop them off that I don't have to worry about it at all.
Praise God for that. And Ms. Cabaret, what about you? What do you think about the school? What has it done for you and your family?
I will say that I'm so happy because it is safe, and it's not too crowded.
Right.
So that's I really like it, and I thank God they like it. At the beginning, they didn't like it, but now they really like it.
Yeah, they've gotten used to it now, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's great. And Miss Alhami, what about you and your boys?
Well, you know, they love it. They love going there. They don't have a problem. And coming from, like I said, I used to homeschool them. I actually gave them options. I said, do you want to go back to public school? Do you want to? And ATLAH came up and I said, do you want to give the school a try? They actually picked the school.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
They picked it. So, and then I said, okay, let's go. And I checked it out and I put them in and I haven't had any problems. They feel safe. They get along with everyone. They learn at their own pace, which is great. You know, they're not, you know, pushed to, you know, just, you know, if they, for instance, I know my sons, one of them has trouble with math. He doesn't pick algebra up as quick. So they work with him, you know, and they work with him at his pace. So he feels confident now. And that's something that I felt that got torn down when they were in, originally in public school. That confidence that they're, you know, that they're, just because they need a little more time to learn a subject doesn't mean that they're dumb. You get
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So definitely putting them in ATLAH has built their confidence.
Praise God. That's great awesome to hear. And Matron LaFleur, Matron Farr, you've been practically in the school forever. And so, Matron LaFleur, how was your experience with your children having to teach in the school and also having children in the school? How was that for you?
I was going to say I'm a bit biased because I am a teacher in the school, but I do love the fact that they have the small classroom and each child gets individual attention.
Right.
And I also love the fact that if your child has a gift, the teachers work extra hard to pull that out of them, even if it's something that they never thought they would be doing.
Right. And Matron Farr? Well, I love the school. As you know, Jeremiah, he graduated last year with Anna. And so it was because of the school that he was awarded so many scholarships to attend Adelphi University. And I believe that if he was in another school, he wouldn't be doing the great things that he's doing now under the leadership of, Pastor being here and then Elder LaFleur being the superintendent.
Yes.
So, and being that he's a young Hamite male, they have steered him in the right direction. And so I don't really fear when he goes out, because I know of the teachings that he's gotten from the school, because we just don't do academics. We are building world leaders. And so we teach them how to go out into the world, to conquer the world, to be better than what the world says that you can be.
Right.
And so I will forever be grateful for that. And then, I have Shadrach, and just the setting in the school. It's a family-orientated school. We're like a family here.
Yeah.
Even though Shadrach is my son, I have Ezekiel, I have Yael, I have Zarek, I have Nabil, I have, the twins, I have I have all of them as my own children. So even though we didn't birth them, they're our children. We're all brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles. And so we take care of the children.
Mm-hmm.
No one goes hungry in our school. No one is ever left behind. We push so that every child strives for excellence. And one of our slogans is all A's all the time and all excellence all the time. And that's what we push inside of every child. So I will always be appreciative. Even if I didn't work here, I would love the school regardless.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Talking to you as parents, knowing all of your children personally, it is a family. And I feel like your children are my children as well. So we look out for them and we want to make sure that they're safe. Having LaFleur as the superintendent and Pastor Manning as the head of the school is an extra blessing on top of that. So it's just wonderful. I'm so grateful to be able to speak with you all today. So let's turn the corners real quick. I want to talk to you all about what you think about the God is named to Tribulation Trump in terms of his presidency, in terms of dealing with coronavirus. What do you think about him? We're going into politics now, so it may be a little uncharted waters. But what do you think about him, Miss Alhami? What do you think about him?
I am not a fan. I can tell you that right now. I'm not a fan. Let's put aside the fact that he's an adulterer, and we all know that.
Yes.
Because of him and his casinos in New Jersey, a lot of businesses went under because they did the work and he didn't pay them, and they lost their businesses. Mm-hmm. And he's just a liar and a manipulator. And I don't like what he's doing with the border, because while everybody is, with the coronavirus, he's taking advantage, and he's still at the border trying to build that ridiculous wall. And he's cutting through the territories, because, they're Native American reservations that cross on the border between like Texas and Mexico. And he has no regard for their feelings, the treaties we made. He's just plowing right through and just continuing to make that stupid wall, when those funds at this point could be redirected to the people who need them, who are suffering from the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Like families in need,
Absolutely. Ms. Cabaret, what do you think about Tribulation Trump and his leadership in these past 3.5 years?
I really don't have nothing to say about him, because it's gonna be, I don't know, it's gonna be bad. So I don't.
Please the face.
Yeah, so.
It's gonna be bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Trust me, I understand. Miss Norman, what about you?
No comment. No comment.
Okay, you plead the fifth. I get it. I get it. What about you, Miss Norman?
Well, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, because I have a long list of things to say about him. And I agree. Like it's not even worth me listening to him. It got to a point where I felt that listening to his comments were giving me anxiety, because I'm like, how can I continue to hear someone who cannot not only finish a sentence, like as a speaker, as someone who's supposed to lead the country, he cannot even say something eloquently. Like there's no filter, there is no empathy. there is no consideration or compassion for anyone.
Yeah.
Whatever comes to his brain, he spits it out. and then he tweets about it. And then it's like a constant, I tell my kids when they're talking too much, I say, you used up your words for today. Okay. And I feel like that's what, Trump needs to do. Like, you used up all your words. That's it. You're done. I don't want to hear it. So I've stopped watching it.
Yeah.
I'll see an update, and if Cuomo's giving an update, I'll watch for a little bit, during my break, and I'll be like, okay, all right. And I turn it off because it was affecting me. It was just making me sad.
Wow.
And I don't have, I'd rather push away and not feed my soul that negativity.
Yeah. Miss Altagracia, Sister Rope, what do you think?
So I think Trump is one of the worst presidents that we have the disgrace to have. He has turned United States into a playground for crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it looks like a dictator. Although we don't have dictatorship in this country, but it feels like it because he has been able to do so many bad things and he hasn't been punished.
Yeah.
He does bad things. He says bad things.
Right.
He does he's a terrible president, of course. He's a terrible human being. The things that come out of his mouth are shameful.
Yes.
And when it comes to coronavirus, I think so many people has died because of his poor skills, because he is not able to do the job the way he's supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really sad for United States history. This is a sad period for United States.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
It certainly is. Machen LaFleur, what do you think? And we have a few minutes left, but I want to know what you think.
Well, he's named correctly by Honorable Manning, calling him Tribulation Trump. He's really brought the tribulation.
Yeah.
Under his leadership, this country has gone from worse with Obama, from bad with Obama to worse. He's everything a president should not be. He's unprofessional. He just speaks negatively about everyone. He thinks he's better than everyone. He doesn't read briefs. He can do what he wants. He can diagnose. He's a doctor. So he can do whatever he wants. And as everyone stated, his supporters, they just continue to follow him. He'll tell you to shoot yourself, and I bet they'll do it. He's just, in their eyes, he's God. And this country is on its way to hell.
And Machen Farr, what are your thoughts? Well, I mean, just to reiterate, I guess, what everyone else has said, to watch him I've actually, like Ms. Norman, I've actually stopped watching him because I found myself, when I watched him, like I've found myself building up with anger, just hearing his voice, just his lack of thought process, the way he puts things together in his mind and then he just blurts it out.
Yeah.
He is Tribulation Trump. He has brought on the tribulation. He has done that. And the sad thing is that, the scary thing is that if he is to be in office again for another 4 years,
wow.
Imagine what we're going through now.
Right.
It's going to be escalated 100-fold.
Right.
Yeah. If he's in there for another 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't worry myself too much because we're here, because we have the teachings here. And so, we listen to what Pastor's saying and everything.
That's right.
I'm not worried for myself, but it's just unbelievable when you look at the people that really, that think that it's like this God.
Yeah.
Like Jesus has sent him here. And I don't mean to be like, too wordy, but it can bring a spirit inside of you that's not good. And so, like Ms. Norman, I don't watch him.
Right.
If I see clips, I'll see clips. And even if I do see clips, I kind of stop myself from looking at the entire thing because I'll start screaming at the television. I'm not going to say I'm like the best Christian. Sometimes I'll be in here by myself and some words will come out and it's not what you're supposed to say, but he just brings that out of you because it's like, what is wrong with you? And you know something is mentally wrong with him. You just know that. I don't know.
Thank you for that. We only have a few minutes left. Time went by so quickly, but I've really, really enjoyed talking with you all. We have to do this again. At some point, I'm going to do this again with you all. This has really been a blessing. I just want to encourage you all to keep your children in the school. Continue to follow, to listen to the words of the Honorable James David Manning, as God has placed him as the leader. He created the school, and also Elder LaFleur under his leadership as the superintendent of the school. Your children are all beautiful. I love them all as my own children. I love you all in the Lord. You all are my sisters, and I pray
love you back.
I pray that you all will just continue to just be a part of what we are doing. I don't want anyone to leave, those of you who are watching the current events class, because in the next half an hour, I'm going to be actually speaking to some of the high school students, and we're going to be speaking with them. But again, ladies, thank you so much for sharing with me today. It's been a blessing. And trust me, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this again, all right?
Yes, yes.
You all stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay in your homes. Pray to the Lord. I pray God's continued. Thank you all. Thank you, Nabil. I can see you in the camera. How are you? And be blessed, everyone. Again, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Peace.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with some of our high school students. So please stay tuned for the rest of the current events class.
When you see the school called ATLAH, you see righteous boys and girls, always standing with the sword of the mighty God, as righteous leaders all over the world. We'll never turn to the left or the right. We shall prevail in all our fights, and we will say, like Honorable Manning says, ATLAH, that's what God says. And we will say, like all our teachers say, ATLAH, that's what God says. ATLAH, we love you. ATLAH, we love you. We love you. Great tomorrow, we love you. We love you. ATLAH, we love you. We love you. Am I a child of the King? I pledge to not be racist against any ethnicity. It doesn't matter what color you are. All that matters is that we are one nation and one for all. We stand for righteousness. When the world comes together as one, we will be the masterpiece that represents the glory of God. Let us all stand together until we die with righteousness and not wickedness. Amen. I am a child of the King, his servant at all times. I am strong. I am blessed. I am special because of the Lord. I am chosen by God, a member of his royal family. I will succeed in all my studies because the Lord is with me.
Makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Jesus makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Insight coming out of Bethlehem. 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 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy.
ATLAH. That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said.
Jesus makes my world go round. Set my feet on holy ground. Set my feet on holy ground. ATLAH's coming. Set my feet on holy ground. ATLAH's coming. Set my feet on holy ground. Jesus, a righteous city. ATLAH, that's what God said. Fire. 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy. All the land.
All right, we are back from the break, and I have here today some of our high school students. I must say again that it was a pleasure speaking with the parents of some of the students of the school, and we would definitely do that again with some other parents. But I have here today before you some of our high school students, and I wanted to talk to them about an incident that took place at our school. So before we get into that, let me introduce them to you. So I have Israel Lewis, who is a ninth grader in ATLAH High School. I have Kimberly Jackson, who is a sophomore in ATLAH High School. I have Layla and Yegbu, who is also a junior in ATLAH High School. I have Zachariah, the twin of Ishmael Alahaimi, who is also a junior. And I have Maya Prentice, who is also a junior in ATLAH High School. Welcome, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Good.
Good. Great. Good. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard, but recently we had an attack on the church building. And I wanted you all, if you're not aware of that, I wanted to make sure that you are aware of that. And then I wanted to get into a discussion about it. So before we get into our actual discussion, I want to play a little video for you from Pastor Manning, which will detail more about what I'm talking about. All right? Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just listen for a second.
The ATLAH Church property building and the mission and the prophecy of God and the word of God has been attacked this weekend. We believe that it happened this Sunday morning between Sabbath closing and Sunday morning opening up, the first day of the week, that a young man dressed in a hoodie threw several rocks through the windows of our church. Now, this is our security camera catching him. Now, we're going to have the police department and the lab people analyze this tape to be able to discover exactly who he is. Now, that was on the front side, the 123rd Street side of the church that he threw a rock through that window, and we'll show you that window in just a moment. That's the 123rd Street main entrance of the church. Now, Mr. Engineer, if you could take us around to the the Lenox Avenue side, the west side of the church, where he threw a rock through that window as well. He actually, so he's running away now. So we're trying to see if his legs are Japheth legs or whether they are Hamite legs. We're going to see. Now, this is the west side. What you're looking at right now is our courtyard and our vehicles that are parked on the street. Now, there he goes. And this is, you can see in the early morning hours. I think he's getting ready to throw. That's it. And there's a throw right there. And now he's running. All right. So we got him. Now, I want to show you, Mr. Engineer, if you could pull up. We called the police officers when we discovered one of our ministers, Rachel, discovered that this is the front of the building. Now, this is a stairway that goes down to our fellowship hall. And that's a stained glass window right there. We called the police in yesterday. And we didn't discover this until the afternoon. Rachel Felder discovered it for us. And you see that hole there in that green stained glass. The rock came through there, and you could see my finger pointing up. I'm in front of the police officers. And trying to stay away from them because they're not wearing a mask. Now that's the rock, and that's a part of the stained glass on the seal, the window seal there. That came through, that he threw. So he threw two rocks. Now that's the window on the front side of the church, the main entrance side, the 123rd Street, broke that beautiful stained glass window.
Okay, so what we saw there was this young boy. I guess he's probably in his early 20s or whatever the case is, but you saw him throw the rock into the window. So here's my question to you all. With this attack that's been upon our church, all right? One of the things is you may ask, well, why has this happened? And you know the history of what we stand for in the church and in the school. You know that we stand against the LGBTQ, primarily, first and foremost, because it's what the Word of God states, right? And so let me ask you all what you all think about this. What you all think about someone who would do this to a church? What do you all think about it? Ishmael, let's start with you.
Well, I'm very surprised that someone even tried to literally go and vandalize the church. I don't really think that violence was really necessary for him, like doing like a violent act, like breaking the window, like and whatever everything else he did. I feel like that wasn't really necessary. I feel like he didn't really have to do that. I feel like he chose to do it because he thought he was making a point, but I feel like he didn't really make a point. He's just making himself look like the bad guy.
Okay. And Prism, what do you think?
Well, I think that it was a crazy idea of someone, especially, well, it's like a lot of young people think they're better than anything. So it was very crazy for that person to do that, especially to a church. That's crazy.
And Kimberly, what about you?
I mean, like, people just don't got nothing to do nowadays. So, I mean, you just gotta have a lot of hate in your heart to do that to a church. And I mean, I don't know why he thought that he wasn't like on camera or nothing, like wearing a hoodie. But we're just going to, hopefully we get him or whatever. That's messed up.
Yeah. And Layla, what do you think about what you just saw?
I was so in shock. Like, we haven't had one of those attacks in such a long time. So I was like, wow. But like to do that to a church is really like, you have no good in you to be doing all of that. And that could have been, it could have hurt somebody. Like if this was like during the day and we was in school, this could actually hurt somebody. You know, you never know what the rock could have done. I think it was just a horrible thing that happened to the church.
Zachariah?
I just feel like it was completely unnecessary. I know that a lot of people don't agree with a lot of the stuff, but using violence is never the answer. You just gotta accept that you don't agree with it and move on. You don't now have like hatred on it and try to ruin it.
Okay. And Israel, what are your thoughts?
I have to agree with Ish, because that's unnecessary. That was really called for. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing at that church at 3 o'clock in the morning? And he just did that out of hatred. And the fact that he just threw it like 4 times, I think he threw a rock. That was just really crazy.
Now, let me ask you all this question. Obviously, we struck a nerve with this young person, not just him, others as well. Obviously, the church, the teachings, the ministry has struck a nerve, which had this young person do this. And you heard the video and pastor saying that he was probably paid to do this. So what do you all think about as far as what we stand for, our beliefs, our values, in regards to the world? How do you stand up to that? Layla, how do you stand up to that?
Well, honestly, I know I believe in the church. I believe in Pastor Manning, and you know that we shouldn't really be afraid, because for them to do that at like night and stuff like that, it shows that they weren't bold enough, they were scared, and that, you know, if they really wanted to really show an attack, they would do it in the day, like show it in Pastor Manning's face. Like, come on now. Like,
okay, all right. Yeah. That's an interesting way to look at it. Maya, what do you think? How do you stand up to this and what we believe?
Oh, well, I think that we know better than they do, as usual. So as what they believe in and who that person is, I don't think they had the right standards to do that.
Okay. Ishmael, how do you stand up to what you believe in?
Well, I believe that, like I said, everybody has the right of speech. Everybody can believe what they want. Everybody can like what they want. Everybody can dislike what they want. But I feel like to go to somebody and try to ruin what they say because you don't agree with it, it makes no sense. There's always like you're allowed to like what you like and dislike what you like. And for him to go up and vandalize the church because he just dislikes what he says, it's pointless. You don't have to act on it. You could both agree that you don't agree with each other. That's it. But he's allowed to preach what he wants to preach. There's no law saying you can't.
Right. And Zach, I think your sound is better now, correct? So let's hear what you have to say.
I basically kind of agreeing with my brother that he had no right to do that, that he, even though he doesn't believe what he is saying, he didn't have to really do that. That was just going over the top. It could just been his own personal opinion, but he had to really just show it. And they have to act with such like violence. All he had to do was just keep it to himself. He didn't really have to break a window. He didn't have to vandalize the church. It was just unnecessary.
And Israel, how do you stand up for what you believe in?
Well, I have to agree with Zach, because saying he went overboard. Like, it's not just because he threw a rock through the church doesn't mean that we're going to change something. It doesn't mean that we're going to change stuff on the board. Pastors still going to preach and stuff.
Right.
And he just went overboard. He just did it out of hatred. For some reason.
So how do you all stand as young people living in this world? You believe a certain kind of way. You have a certain kind of mindset, but other people don't agree with you. They disagree with you, or they say that you are full of hate because you believe what you believe and so forth. How do you all deal with that as young people? How do you stay strong in the face of the world who says you're wrong, you're full of hate, that's not the way God says, that's not what God believes in? How do you all stand strong as young people? Kimberly, how do you stand strong?
I mean, I never experienced what you're saying, so I don't know.
No, I'm just saying in general. How do you stay strong against people who disagree what you believe in and so forth?
They just got to answer to God. That's between them and God, what they believe and what they don't believe. I mean, it don't faze me.
Okay. And Layla, what about you? How do you stand strong?
Well, I know who I am, and like I know and what I believe in, so nobody can't tell me different. Like I'm not gonna just listen to you because you want me to gravitate to what you believe in. But I know what's right and I know what's wrong, so I'm just gonna keep believing and standing up for what's actually right.
Okay. And what about you? What about you, Prism? How do you stand strong?
Well, how I stand strong is that I don't pay people any attention after a while. Like if they say something I don't like or want to hear, I just throw them out. Like that's how I am.
Okay. And Ishmael, how do you stay strong?
Well, like I said before, is just people are allowed to like what they like. Like you could if people like Hawaiian pizza and someone don't, you can't judge them off of liking it. You're your own person. You're allowed to like what you like. You know yourself better than anybody knows you. So you know what you like, you know what you dislike. And I also have to agree with Maya that you also have to zone people out like that, because even those people can get into your head and make you change who you are.
Okay. So let me ask you all this question. Let's turn the corner for a second. We've been home now for almost 2 months, dealing with the coronavirus, and New York City has an order of stay again until May 28th. So now it's been pushed to the end of May. And we don't know what's going to happen at that point. It could be pushed even further. How are you all dealing in the past 2 months? Are you all at the point where you all are just sick and tired of all of this that we are dealing with, or has it made you stronger as an individual? Israel, I'm gonna let you answer first.
I won't say I'm tired. I just want to go back to what I usually do, like on weekends, on movies and stuff. Because I only get to go out 2 days a week, and that's really nothing. But then I'm still getting some fresh air. So I'm in between. I'm in between of it.
Okay. Do you find yourself stronger as an individual as far as your experiences now than you did prior to the coronavirus, or are you just the same?
I would say, I guess I'm a bit strong, because when I go to church, I just seem different, because I have responsibilities there. So yeah.
Okay. And Layla, what about you? Are you stronger now, dealing with all of this for the past 2 months, or do you think you have the same kind of mindset?
Well, I think that one that has definitely changed me, because I'm pretty sure no one was really used to this. We was all used to going out, but I mean, it did make me stronger in a way, because it was teaching me how to survive and stuff like that, and actually adapt to what's going on in a real world right now.
Right.
But I actually do miss going out and stuff, and going out to church and to school. It's different because when you get up, it's okay, your school is online, everything is home, everything is here. So you have to adjust to that now. But I mean, you never know. So we might be able to go back to school. You just never know. So yeah.
Yeah, you never know. Kimberly, what about you? Do you feel like you're stronger? Do you feel like you've changed in the last 2 months?
No, I'm the same way.
You're the same way. Do you look at things the same? I'm sure you don't. You can't look at things the same way you did prior to COVID-19.
What you mean by that? I look...
Just in general, do you look at the world the same way that you did before?
I don't think so. No, probably no. No, because it's the world as we knew it as growing up, it's all just subject to our houses now. So, I mean, I think of it a little different. I mean, I wasn't one to really go out that much anyway, but I do miss seeing my family and stuff. I could go without school and all the store stuff, but I do miss seeing my family, because everyone gotta be separated and stuff. So that is one thing that takes a toll on me. But other than that, I'm the same. And yeah.
Okay. And Maya, Prism, what about you? Do you think you've changed in the last 3 months, or you think you're still the same?
Well, I mean, I think I've changed because now I'm just cooking more and stuff and baking. And,
You're baking? You're baking, Prism?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool. That's cool. Okay, so would you say that it's because you have more time now to do other things that you've changed? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zachariah, what about you? Do you think that you've changed in the last 2 months?
No, not really. Pretty much the same.
Same cat.
Do you view the world the same way? Do you have the same perspective of the world as a whole? Or do you just view it differently?
I kind of see this as a blessing in disguise.
Why do you say that?
Because now the ecosystem is doing much better. Since not all the people are like throwing their plastic in the ocean. They're not putting greenhouse gases in the air.
Right.
Oceans are getting better. Air is getting more clearer.
Okay.
I find this more like a blessing in disguise, and I guess I'm a little bit of a germaphobe now.
Okay.
I want to keep catching it.
And Ishmael, what about you? Do you think that you've changed in the past 2 months?
Probably most definitely I've changed. Because I've really, when you sit here, you really get to know yourself more and more. So I feel like I've gotten to know myself better. And while bored, while staying here, I've decided to always expand myself. So I'm listening to more genres of music.
Okay.
Watching how the way I speak, like using slang, I'm using no slang. I've also I've also tried to be more proactive, like try to do some workout, try to do cleaning, try to get back to my guitar. Try to start getting a hobby, because when you sit in the house all day, the problem is when you're sitting down, just doing nothing. It's like kind of like your body's slowly, like you could say decaying, like it's slowly going lazy on you.
Yeah,
you want to try to keep it active,
Well, that's great. That is really great to hear. It's really good to hear that you're finding different things to keep yourself productive. And as Prism stated, she's baking now. So that's a great thing as you all are home. Well, it looks like our time is up. It went by really quickly. I want to thank you all for sharing with us today. And, we don't know when school is going to open back up. I would just suggest that you continue to listen to what's going on in New York City specifically, because this is where we all live, and pay attention to everything that's going on, certainly from Pastor Manning as he's given us our instructions. I want to thank you all for sharing with me today. I want to stay safe, everyone. Stay indoors as much as possible. Do not go out if you don't have to go, because the coronavirus is still going on. And this new disease is now associated with coronavirus that's affecting young people your ages. Is definitely going on strong as well. So be safe, everyone, and continue to be blessed. I want to thank everyone out there for watching this week's edition of the Current Events class, first with our parents and then with our high school students. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I hope you're as blessed as I was today. Until next time, I say to you all, peace out.
Peace. 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 Peace.